Looking back, Nero can still remember snatching watercress during his ceremony at 12, the first sign of what was coming. Holding his hand, he suddenly realizes that one single symbol just rewrote his entire life. Because everyone in the community stares at him with those ice-cold eyes, like they can't look away. Because everyone calls the water element nothing but a curse, Nero, as a kid, just drops to his knees completely. Crushed by reality, everyone acts like that power is trash, so they just move on and call it the way the world goes. Right up to today, a knight storms in, yells at Nero that he's officially been banished from the party, and he just stands there, shaking, half-stunned, mid-freeze like the world hit pause. They were yelling in Nero's face, demanding he pack up and disappear from their sight already. Now that Nero finally hit 17, life was supposed to get better, but instead he's just sitting there doing nothing. Stunned, he just sat there, swallowing the shock that the hero's party was kicking him out, path of glory. Nero snaps back, fighting to keep his footing, and demands to know why they're doing this, after a whole year of working together. The knight leader stares at him like he's clueless and snaps, asking if it isn't obvious that telling Nero to his face, straight up, that his water power is completely useless, and the other girl jumped in too, basically saying the only reason they ever kept him was to fetch water. But now that they've got a magic water skin, the whole plan changes. The team's leader steps up and makes it crystal clear. Nero's no longer wanted on the squad. Nero tries to fire back, stammering that those magic items have limits he doesn't yet. Then the leader snaps, bellows at him, and demands he shuts his mouth right now. He barrels forward, screaming that Nero was never any real help in a fight, and the force of his words slams Nero backward until he stumbles. The leader stands over everyone and declares this wasn't just his call, then swings his gaze toward Fea Serena and asks if she's in. The woman nods and confirms it, telling Nero his weak magic is nothing but a drain on them from here on out. Then, while Fea Serena shuts her eyes and swears this is exactly what God is pushing to happen, the boss flings a bag of coins at him and dubs it severance pay, trying to shut Nero up before he starts bawling later about how they really treated him. The leader loomed over him, snarled for Nero to grab the money, then vanished before they even had to look at him again. Because the second he hesitated, the whole thing was about to fall apart. With one hand thrust toward the exit, he makes it crystal clear. Nero has to get out of this town too. He doesn't stop there. He straight up warns Nero that if he's still hanging around after a while, he'll step in and crush him personally with everything he's got. Nero is totally frozen in shock and blurts, "What the hell does that even mean?" But the leader yanks him by the collar and growls at Nero to shut up the second he tries to refuse the money. With pure annoyance burning in his eyes, the guy snaps that it's strict severance pay, then makes it clear he's not yanking back something he already offered. He tells Nero to grab the money and get out, unless he's begging to be cut down right here. Nero finally snaps to the truth. There's no way to win, so he throws out "got it" and strides off like he's done with this. A little later, Nero drifts through the streets all by himself, gripping that tiny pouch of coins, feeling totally stranded, until a priest hanging out by the nearby fence clocks him and blurts his name, asking why he's pacing around with that long, heavy frown. Nero drops the truth and confesses he didn't leave on his own. He got booted from his party, and that's what sets everything. Leaves the father wide-eyed, then he blurts out, does Nero really plan to keep adventuring? And Nero just smirks, saying he's fine, even if that means he's right back to being alone. He leans in, tells the priest he's thrilled to hear it, then demands fresh water, saying the usual stuff won't work for his recovery magic. So the priest smiles and happily agrees to help. The two of them stroll side by side past towering church buildings, drifting through the hushed, quiet town like the night belongs to them. As they walk, Nero's eyes lock onto something weird and he blurts, "Was that there the last time I came?" And then the question just cuts off. So the father tells him, "A few days back, a tiny earthquake hit, boom, the ground buckled, and this old building suddenly popped up like it had been hiding underground." He claims it's an ancient device, a well, something folks from long ago relied on to pull water up and live their lives. The priest tells Nero to take a look while he dashes off to fetch empty bottles, and Nero fires back, "I've got it." Nero leans over the edge to peer down, wondering if folks hauled water from there, because it has to be way, way at the bottom. Nero hovers at the cracked edge of the old stone well, eyes locked on the darkness, wondering if he should dump in some water just to see what it unleashes. So he thrusts his hands forward, unleashes his magic, and shouts his water supply skill like he's calling a flood from the sky. Because every town's got plumbing these days, getting water is usually as easy as breathing, no drama at all. Honestly, weak water magic in a fight isn't a death sentence. It's a sneaky weapon, perfect for annoying monsters and throwing a goblin off guard with a blast to the face. Nero pushed his power beyond fighting, even cracked the code to brew mana water that snaps magic back to life. But because real magic potions were already everywhere, Guy and the rich hero crew never bothered to care about what he could pull off. Hold up, smash that like button, then hit subscribe. For more hidden manga gems, go on, I dare you to comment. Comment down below, I'm absolutely loving this. And I bet most of you are too. If you won't do it, then we're stuck. Alright, let's keep going. Nero steps forward, grabs the well's rope. And as soon as he tugs, he realizes this is way tougher than he ever imagined. Suddenly the rope gives way, snap, and the bucket plummets straight into that deep, pitch-black hole. A brutal crash booms up from below and Nero yanks himself back, clamping both hands over his ears. He leans over the edge, peering down, and watches the bucket slam into the bottom with a brutal, earth-shaking thud. Nero freezes at the well, stunned by how hard that bucket slammed down in seconds. His mind scrambles to figure out where all that power came from, because it happened the moment. In this world, there's one truth everybody swears by. Water can't possibly have weight. Everyone knows water has no weight. So if it can't hit with real mass, people have always shrugged and called water magic useless in a fight. It can't scorch through things the way fire does. And it sure as hell can't blast enemies back like a gust of wind. And it can't even stack up solid walls for defense with earth magic. Because of all that, people always snub water magic, but Nero can't stop thinking, what if water actually had weight? He shakes that thought away for a second, practically insisting to himself the bucket was just stupidly heavy all on its own. So he yanks the rope back up, hanging onto it just to see the truth with his own eyes. Once he manages to lift it back up, he swings the bucket and realizes it's ridiculously light, just like he'd been suspecting all along. He stares back down into the pitch-black well and finally understands it. What slammed him before wasn't magic at all. It was the water's crushing pull. The father strolls over and spots Nero loitering near the well, and he can't help but say the kid's got a real obsession with that spot. Like it's the only place that matters. That snaps Nero's attention. He blurts that he just made a huge discovery and the father's left totally baffled like, what on earth could it be even close to? Nero steps right up in his face, eyes blazing with intensity, then drops the shocking truth, water has weight. The father just stands there calm as ever, while the kid fires off non-stop energy, lecturing him about his wild theory. But the old man just shrugs it off with a hearty laugh, telling Nero he can't believe he's finally learned to crack jokes like that. So Nero's panic spikes. He tells the father he's dead serious and swears this isn't some joke at all. To prove his point, Nero dares him to grab the rope and yank for himself. So the father tries, and immediately admits it takes real muscle to move that thing. The old man doesn't even blink. He shrugs and says it's probably just spirits pulling some kind of prank, and it leaves. Nero sat through a lecture about spirits messing with river currents just to stir up trouble for everyone. Dad figures the spirits only crashed the scene out of curiosity now that the well's finally full. And Nero just freezes there, utterly speechless. The rocky land lies dead silent beneath the morning sky, and Nero just stands there staring at the world like, they say water has no weight and spirits are only here to mess with people. Sure, that's supposed to be the norm, but now he knows for real. He just felt the water's weight in his own hands, and he finally realizes so then he looks down and it hits him. He'd been letting the water run this whole time without ever really feeling it. He clenches his staff so hard his knuckles ache, and he can't stop thinking, what if he finally locks in and lets that weight take over? As the water spins around him, he shuts his eyes tight and pours every last ounce of focus into that one single thought. His eyes snap open like a switch flipped to confidence, and he blares, I've finally got it figured out. Nero shouts the name of his brand new spell, Waterjet Asterisk, then unleashes a colossal blast of high-pressure water straight ahead, right as it crashes. It's a monstrous boulder so brutally heavy it can actually shift, and when it does, he freezes, just staring at that crater in pure shaking disbelief. He clenches his fist and watches his crest blaze with light. And yeah, he knew his theory was right the whole time. Nero practically glows with excitement, shouting that heavy water is way heavier than everyone thinks. He flashes back to yanking that bucket up, and it hits him hard. More water means a whole lot more weight, and everything just got heavier. And then a sly smirk spreads across his face. He just cracked the code on how it all works. Suddenly, a creepy voice cuts right through the air and tells him straight to his face that he's finally cracked the logic of water. And now he's being blessed. Nero whips his head around, completely baffled, because those words feel like they exploded straight out of his own mind. He stares at his hand, and everything inside him just drops because a brand new glowing mark burns into his skin right there, so he just freezes, staring at it in pure shock, scrambling to figure out when it ever got there in the first place. It's a crest he's never laid eyes on, and he knows only one kind of ritual is supposed to summon something like this. But for some reason, his instincts scream that this fresh mark is really the sage's crest. He can't shake the feeling that this brand new power is somehow tied to that eerie voice he heard earlier. Nero's packed with questions about what's going on, but instead of overthinking it, he dives straight into testing this new magic. He clamps down and concentrates, replaying every splash of water he imagined before, then fighting to crush it all into a single spot. Then it hits him right there, and he can feel the power roaring to life inside him, swelling by the second. He raises his staff high, whips it through the air, and screams his water ball spell. Then a colossal sphere of water detonates into existence. The explosion rips a massive crater straight into the rock, and Nero just freezes there, staring in total shock at what he's done. He flashes this huge grin, totally stunned. Everyone called that weak water attribute worthless, but it's packing way more power than anyone ever saw. But then it hits him trying to move and aim something that huge is gonna be brutal. Right when Then a sudden voice yells, "Water boy!" From behind him. He whips around and sees 3 guys standing right there. They're glaring at him like they're ready to explode, while their leader snaps, "What are you even doing out here in the middle of nowhere?" Nero asks what they need, but the guy ignores him and blurts out that he got thrown out of the hero's party. The lead thug snorts, claiming he watched Nero slip out of the hero's place with a bag of gold, then leans in and asks if it was nothing but hush money. His buddies jump in and start roasting him. Why would a guy with a weak water affinity need that much cash in the first place? The guy demands Nero hand over the bag, insisting they'll put it to way better use than he ever could. But Nero won't let that slide, he snaps, since when did adventurers turn into crooks? And drills them with the fact that what they're doing is a straight-up crime. The leader just smirks and shrugs, basically saying, "It's not a crime if nobody catches you." And then he laughs like wiping out a loser like Nero is going to be a walk in the park. Nero spots the guy sketching out his weapon and immediately clocks him. This isn't just random trouble, he's got a martial-type crest. So instead of burning mana for spells, this dude charges his blows with his own life force. Like every punch is powered by him. The thug bursts in screaming, demanding they start, and then he slams into action, activating his skill, severing enhancement ***. Nero clocks it, this guy isn't messing around, he's trying to take his head off. And Nero refuses to just stand there and get slaughtered. He starts imagining water piling up, crushing into one deadly point, and then, right on cue, releasing a monstrous burst of force. Nero puts everything into it, screams for his water magic to finally ignite. He fires a heavy water bullet straight ahead, and the blast detonates so brutally that the thugs get completely blindsided. And that insane sheer pressure slams into them like a freight train, hurling everyone backward, flying through the air. The mage stumbles on his feet, mutters curses through his teeth, and demands to know what kind of insane power he just witnessed. The explosion tears the earth to pieces, ripping open a huge crater where everything used to be. The 3 of them are freaking out, screaming in raw disbelief, because they cannot believe that a weak crest just pulled off something like this. Even Nero can't help it. He's staring at his own hand, stunned that his simple water magic just became something nobody can match. But the leader doesn't fall for it. He jabs his sword forward and blasts Nero with the accusation that he's smuggling a magic bomb hidden in his clothes. Nero just stares him down, cold and blank, and tells him straight up that what he saw wasn't anything, just water magic. The thugs explode into screaming fits, calling him a liar, swearing up and down that water could never cause an explosion like that. The earth rips open with a thunderous boom and the thugs completely lose it, shouting, "Is this an earthquake or what?" Water bursts from the cracks like a raging geyser, and the archer girl screams that it's spilling everywhere and Nero catches a twitch in the spray, screams that everyone duck. Then he launches himself in, diving headfirst to snatch whatever's moving. He finally snatches that little round slime the pressure spits out, then freezes and stares at it like, "Wait, what just happened?" Nero finally leans in and demands where it even came from, and the little slime just tilts its head and squeaks this weird, unsettling sound back at him. Then it clicks in his head. Maybe his magic accidentally struck an underground water vein, blasting water and slime up through the ground. If he really ruptured an underground vein, he suddenly realizes he may have just unleashed something way worse than he bargained for. But the tiny slime doesn't seem to care at all. It wriggles against Nero's hands like it knows him, and suddenly Nero realizes just how friendly this little creature really is. The lead thug glares at them, laughs at Nero, and sneers that the slime is begging to be his new best buddy. And then he keeps running his mouth, claiming it's a perfect match because a weak water user obviously fits right in with a bottom-tier slime partner. That tiny slime starts blasting the air with noise and bouncing like crazy, and Nero can't help but laugh as he tries to get it to finally calm down. But the mage in that gang of thugs isn't laughing. He glares down at the thing and snarls, "That cocky little slime." He's fully convinced Nero somehow rigged that last move. And then he starts twirling his wand like a madman, swearing he'll show them what real magic is supposed to look like. He roars that those basic water spells don't stand a chance. His wind magic will blow them away, no contest. Suddenly, the slime explodes upward on its own and rockets straight into the sky. Nero can only stare stunned as it climbs higher and higher. Before anyone can even blink, the little guy squeaks like crazy and blasts a huge spray of water droplets straight at the mage. The blast slams into his face and panic explodes. Water shoots straight into his eyes, and in seconds he's totally blinded. Nero glances at his new tiny partner and shoots him a grateful smile, telling the slime it just saved him a moment ago. The slime somehow gets it, then it starts bouncing like crazy, sparkles exploding everywhere, and that happy little sound bursts out like it just scored the biggest win of all. Nero keeps his eyes on the little guy and starts piecing it together. Turns out those tiny drops of water can hit like a weapon, as long as you unleash them all at once. That archer thug is losing his mind. He's screaming at Nero to stop screwing around, all while he snatches for another arrow. He yanks the bowstring taut, shouts his snipe ability, and locks in like there's no way this next shot can miss. Nero isn't about to freeze. He snaps his fingers like a gun and charges his water gun magic, those tiny orbs sparking right on his fingertips. The archer spots the move and a bad feeling snaps through him. He freezes for a beat, shocked because he never saw a counterattack hit this fast. Before he can even squeeze the trigger, those water bullets slam into his chest and arms, blasting him backward as he screams in agony. The swordsman spots his friend get wiped out, freezes in horror, then blurts a shocked shout as he stares at the archer crumpled on the ground. The mage thug's patience snaps, teeth clenched tight as he starts chanting, summoning a wind magic spell like it's about to tear the air apart. He snaps a razor-sharp wind blade straight at Nero, and it carves across the battlefield like a deadly slash of air. The mage doesn't stop. He slams down a wind hammer next, then calls a brutal gust from above to crush Nero under it. But Nero stays ice calm, raises his wand, and blasts a massive water sphere into the sky to slam down the wind's crushing pressure. Their two spells crash together in a blinding surge of water and energy, blasting out a shockwave that rips through the air. The mage thug just stands there slack-jawed, baffled. How in the world did plain water wipe out his wind magic? Nero stays cool, then drops the truth. His water isn't normal at all. It's heavy as hell, and that's where every bit of its extra power is coming from. He totally snaps, slamming Nero with idiot, and screaming that water is never supposed to be heavy. He's trembling, insisting there's no way that useless water magic could have actually attacked him like that. So he's convinced it's nothing but some kind of trick. Refusing to quit, he launches into another spell, hammers out a furious shout. His wind won't be beaten by some little water. But Nero clenches his wand and tells him, if that earlier move was a wind hammer, then I've got my own version to show you. He hoists a colossal orb of water over his head, screams his water hammer spell, and the entire area starts shaking like it's about to break. Then the whole thing collapses on the mage. He shrieks one final time before the crushing weight of the water buries him. The group swordsmen can't process what they're seeing, standing frozen in shock as their friend lies face down in the dirt, utterly finished. Nero stares at the last guy standing, tells him he's the only one left, and then demands to know what he's about to do. The swordsman's panic explodes the moment he dives into his gear, groaning like fate just kicked him in the ribs, because he knows deep down he's totally outmatched. Out of nowhere, a glowing magic circle snaps around him as he screams, Nero better wait. Then he curses his rotten luck and bolts to escape. Nero just stands there in the middle of that empty wasteland, realizing the guy didn't run. He vanished with a teleportation scroll. He's not exactly freaking out, but he swears he'll report the whole thing to the guild for sure. Then he whips around to the little slime, thanking it for backing him up in the fight, only for the slime to chirp back, no. Noticing the little guy rubbing up against his leg, Nero's eyes widen. Could it actually be trying to latch onto him? So with a grin on his face, he drops to one knee and asks the slime if it wants to join him on his journey. The slime starts bouncing everywhere and bursting into joyful little noises like it can't contain its excitement. It's totally locked in on the idea, which Nero breaks into laughter, swears meeting you was pure destiny, and feels ridiculously good about his brand new friend. Nero lays his hand on the slime and asks what kind of name it wants, so it can. So he starts tossing ideas out. Bruce because it's blue, or maybe lime since it's a slime. But then it hits him this little guy actually showed up, hauling water right with him, and a sudden spark ignites in his mind. Finally, he's hit on the perfect idea. Nero blurts out Suimu, and demands what it thinks, and the slime chirps back like, yeah, I'm totally in. He steps up and makes it official, declaring, from now on it's called Suimu, and start whirling that little guy around in the air. Both of them are laughing like crazy. Suimu tilts her head up at him, grinning so wide with pure joy, like everything in the world finally feels right. But Nero stops dead in his tracks, blinking like, did that slime just glow for a second? He chalks it up to his own imagination, and the two slide right back into hanging out as Sway Mew hums a bright, happy little tune. Nero gives Sumu a quick squeeze, grins, and tells the little guy he's thrilled they're finally working together, and Sumu just spins in place, glowing with pure joy. But once they hit the guild, everything goes wild. Fleur, the receptionist, slams her hands on the counter and screams that she heard Nero got attacked. She starts shaking Nero like he's made of glass, freaking out and bombarding him with the same question, "Are you okay?" over and over, while Nero keeps trying to calm her down for just a second. Fleur's eyes go all scary, and she snaps that no band-attacking nonsense is getting swept under the rug, no matter what they're registered as, because she's filing a real complaint. Nero lets out a shaky laugh, tells her thanks for always having his back, and Suimu leans over his shoulder, hunting down what's got him making noise. That's when Fleur finally spots the little blue guy, and immediately flips out, screaming like crazy because she can't believe he's hauling a slime. Nero tells them he stumbled on it out in the forest, and the moment they connected he knew, so if fate handed him this creature, he'd raise it himself. Fleur finally eases up and admits the truth. People really do keep that exact kind as pets all the time, and it totally helps the vibe, but then she hardens her expression again and tells Nero straight up that she's still stunned he came back with not a single scratch on him. She tells him those thugs weren't just rude, they were genuinely dangerous and ridiculously strong, and she's still stunned that Nero was quick enough to bolt past them and escape. Nero rushes in to set the record straight and tells Fleur he didn't run, he used his magic to blast those guys off, and Suimu chips in, backing him up like, "Yep, that's what happened." Fleur just stands there staring right at him through her glasses, like not a single word is landing. She lights up and tells him, "No shame in running. If you're an adventurer, knowing when to bail is straight up smart." Fleur tells him he doesn't have to pretend to be tough around her, then swears she'll make sure those thugs get caught, while Nero only shoots back a pretty weak line. Nero realizes he can't talk her into it right now, so he shrugs it off and vows to prove, later, just how terrifyingly strong water magic really is. The whole vibe changes the moment Fleur spots what's missing. She turns to Nero and fires off, "Why are you alone today? Where's the rest of your party hiding?" Nero squirms through the awkward silence and finally blurts the truth. He's done chasing the path of glory for good. Fleur loses it completely, screaming she can't believe any of it, and demanding to know why he'd ever ditch a top party like that. Nero takes a little time, then lays it all out for her piece by piece, explaining exactly how that entire nightmare blew up with his old team. Fleur lets out this deep, heavy sigh after hearing the whole story, because it finally clicks. Nero didn't just disappear, he got kicked out. Nero tells everyone Guy will probably come back later for his bit, then shrugs off the stress. He's ready to get through this withdrawal and move on. He drops the finished papers for the priest's request on the table, shoves the heavy bag of coins right after them, and asks if he can turn everything in at once. The floor feels pointless as my jaw drops at the loot, and I just stare at him like, where on earth did you even get something like this? Nero shrugs it off with a burst of laughter, labels it a severance package, and cracks a joke that the hero's party is way more generous than anyone thinks, only for her to end up stuck with an awkward little laugh. Things get real fast when Fleur points out that his water affinity is going to make the road ahead brutal. But she doesn't leave him hanging, offering to help him find a new group. She keeps the thought locked inside because she can practically hear what everyone else would say. No one sane would dare take a water mage, and him landing in the hero's party was pure dumb luck. Nero clocks her concern in a second, thanks her with a grin, then reassures her. He's got this and he doesn't need her to worry. He's forcing a smile, telling her he's got a whole list of things he can't wait to try now that Suimu's got his back. Fleur finally breaks into a smile, sensing he's in a better headspace, and tells him, "I'm always here. If you ever need someone to talk to, just call." The two of them trade a heartfelt goodbye, and Nero strides out of the guild with his head held high, already feeling like the next chapter is about to blow his mind. Nero steps out into the town, takes a deep breath, and hypes himself up. All right, it's time to move. He strides down the street with Suimu perched on his shoulder, already hunting for an inn and something good to eat, and he keeps checking in with the little guy to see what he's hungry for. The story snaps back to the Adventurers Guild building as the sun dips low over the roof. At the counter, the night leader shows up with a hard, serious stare and tells Fleur he has to officially process Nero's expulsion from the party. Fleur drops a line that slams into him out of nowhere and he freezes on the spot, then blurts out, "Wait, say that again." She tells him forget the paperwork. Nero already showed up and sealed the withdrawal himself. Fleur stares at him with pure disappointment, firing off, "Seriously? After a whole year working together, why would you kick me out?" That night's leader just sneers, turns away, and snaps that the guy was never cut out for their high-level crew. He shuts the whole conversation down on the spot, turns his back, and demands, "Does Nero even have enough decency to get out of town yet?" Fleur snapped at the idea, yelling that just because he'd quit their party, it didn't mean Nero had to be kicked out of his own home. One of the thugs swaggered right up to the night leader, trying to look fearless, and snap that he didn't buy a word of what had just been said. He kicks things off by trash-talking Nero, claiming he never liked him and saying trash like him doesn't even deserve to be in town. He keeps charging forward, laughing as he promises to hop into the party himself, bragging that he'd be way more useful than some loser who can only make water. Fleur lunges in to cut him off, but before she can even get a word out, violence erupts. The night leader slams into him so viciously he coughs up water, barely manages to whisper what happened before he starts choking on his own breath. The night leader towers over him, spits that he's a worthless grunt, and demands to know how he's supposed to be useful when he can't even dodge a punch meant to be easy. A younger guy from the party chimes in, sharp as a blade, saying only the people who actually worked with Nero have the right to trash him. He squares up to the thug and snaps that some nobody off the street has zero right to pretend he knows a damn thing about Nero, or what Nero is worth. The night leader's about to snap. He stares the guy down with a killer glare and straight up tells him he'll kill him. The thug is trembling, drenched in sweat, throwing out "don't get cocky" like it'll save him, but it's obvious he's petrified. The thug is trembling in his boots as a brand new voice slices through the air. Then the woman from the party chimes in, backing the guy and warning the thug that if he speaks one more word, she's about to make him pay. She jabs her staff straight at him, and dark energy spirals around it as she dares him to try exploding for once, while Fea Serena just locks eyes with him and stares back with a chilling, dead-serious blankness. That's all it takes to shatter him. This thug erupts into frantic apologies, then rockets out of there at full speed, and the rest of the party just freezes, staring after him like, "Are you kidding me?" After that, he leaned over the city lights and couldn't shake what just went down. Was that girl really the one who stepped in for Nero, the man they tossed out, or was he just letting his mind play tricks on him? Meanwhile, deep in the woods, Nero pounds the ground with his new power. He yells a command for his heavy water bullet magic, and the pressure is so brutal it snaps massive trees clean in half. Nero grins and stares down at his staff like he just hit the jackpot. He's genuinely relieved, because the magic that crashed in yesterday is working flawlessly, and he can feel himself finally getting the hang of it. Then suddenly, Suimu starts acting up. This tiny slime starts springing toward the brush, and Nero whips his head over, stunned by how fired up she got out of nowhere. He stalks after her to a towering tree and blurts out, "Is this what you want to eat?" Then he spots huge, ripe fruits hanging high in the branches, and Suimu practically locks in on grabbing them. Nero remembers she was still gushing about that fruit from yesterday's meal, watches the little slime bounce in hunger for a snack, and then, bam, he clocks the problem. He sizes up how tall those branches are and mutters that climbing up there in these clothes is going to be brutal. Then, right as he's stuck on that thought, he spots something strange happening beside him. Nero freezes in total shock as Suimu flings out a long, watery arm. Then the slime stretches up to a high branch, yanks a fruit off like it's nothing, and leaves. Nero can't stop staring. He's seriously blown away. Then he tells Suimu she's incredible for pulling off stuff like that, but she just chirps with joy and clutches her new snack like it's the greatest thing ever. When Nero keeps going, claiming she can stretch and shuffle things around even though her body is basically just water, Suimu looks like she's in heaven, hugging her apple, and then Nero's expression snaps instantly. He cuts off mid-sentence, eyes bulging like a wild plan clicks into place, and then he starts muttering to himself. Finally it clicks. If he copies the same logic Suimu just used for her body and applies it to his own water magic, he could. He yells that he's got this, and right as he speaks, glowing water spheres start popping into the air around him one after another. He doesn't waste a second. He shouts a brand new spell, *water whip*, and thick ropes of pressurized water explode from his position, whipping through the trees until the whips whip themselves around those massive tree trunks. And when Nero spots the watery limbs latch onto the branches and clamp down hard, he blurts out in shock. And he can't stop laughing, big grin stretched across his face, because this new trick is about to come in clutch for him. So he swings back to the tiny slime, pats her on the head, and blurts out that this whole lightbulb miracle is all thanks to her. Then Suimu chirps back like, "Yeah, you're welcome," and she's honestly proud of herself. Nero's practically buzzing with excitement as he leans in and tells Suimu that his brand new trick means they can keep taking jobs just like always. Then he pushes her to give it her all, and the little slime chirps back like, "You got it." And just like that, we slam back into town. Sunlight blazes over the rooftops and the whole place feels alive. And right there, someone at the guild blurts out about the request boards, while their hand snatches up a stack of papers from the desk. Floor lifts up a sheet with a shaky grin and hints that maybe Nero should start with an herb-gathering quest first. But Nero just freezes there, eyes empty, and slowly mouths, "Herb gathering," over and over to her like he can't even process what he just heard. Until he finally snaps. He screams that those jobs are only for total rookies, the kind who just started out, and right then he starts fighting for his point. saying, "Sure, I'm solo now, but I'm still an E-rank adventurer, so I should only be taking quests that fit my level." Floor doesn't budge an inch and drops a hard stare on him, then tells him straight up he only cleared those dungeon quests because he had an entire team watching his back. And she hits him with the truth. Those 3 teammates were all D-rank, and bluntly warns him that if he's alone, it plays out in a whole different way, even if he thinks it won't. Nero drops his gaze, totally discouraged, and grumbles that things feel different now, because for the first time he can actually fight. Nero realizes he can't just talk. He hasn't even shown Fleur that he used water magic to win his last fight, so he knows he needs real proof if he wants her to see he can back it up. Then he snaps, starts yelling, and juts his right hand out like he's unveiling a weapon, telling Fleur, "A brand new crest appeared on my palm." But Fleur just rubs her head like the words are giving her a headache and demands, "What are you talking about?" Fleur just gapes at his open palm, then demands, straight up, where the heck this crest is supposed to be. Nero's forehead breaks into sweat as she locks eyes with her and shoots a shaky grin, then blurts out, "Seriously, you can't see it, right?" He keeps shoving his hand right in her face, practically pleading for her to see it. Then Fleur finally gets it, stares, and the moment she understands everything, it just totally confuses Nero. She tells him he's at that age when boys start getting weird, and then she hands him. She flashes him that smug little grin and goes, "Oh, I get it, wanting to believe there's some hidden secret out there." Then bam, a special power jolts awake inside him, like he's the main character in some wild story. She insists it's just a phase everyone hits at least once in life. And the moment she says it, Nero and his tiny slime buddy snap. Both of them lose it, screaming in total disbelief that she thinks he's just putting on an act. Nero drops his gaze to his own hand, utterly crushed. He can't understand why she still won't see the crest sitting right there, but Fleur's smile drops. She turns deadly serious and tells him, "If you're set on tougher quests, I can't really stop you, but I've got serious doubts." Fleur locks eyes with him and demands he actually think everything through before he dares make that choice. She tells them that yeah, everyone expects adventurers to come back bruised, but if you're reckless, it's never going to end well, period. And Nero whips his gaze back to her, and you can feel the truth in her worry as he speaks her name. He starts scanning the board, replaying yesterday's first real fight in his head. Now he knows he needs a quest that actually matches his skill level, so he spots a job listing for magic herbs, clear as day. Gather 2,500 blue roses and the payout is massive. The pay's insane, but then he clocks that the brutal quota turns this from regular weed picking into something way tougher. With the rank on his side and no legendary monsters lurking in this forest, he decides this is the perfect test, so he takes a breath, and then he blasts forward about. He yanks the paper off the board and tells Fleur he's going for that exact job. Fleur shoots a nervous look and warns him that even if the monsters aren't super strong, the woods are packed with all kinds of plant monsters, and soloing through that mess is downright dangerous. Nero flashes her a huge grin and tells her they'll be okay because Suimu's coming with him, while the little slime chirps and waddles right along. Fleur watches them and thinks the kid's unbelievably cute. But can that tiny slime really fight? Nero leans in and tells her, "Suimu saved me back then when those adventurers attacked, so I know I can trust you." Flora admits she never imagined a slime like Asterisk that could fight. But the moment it proves itself, her jaw drops, and she calls the little thing seriously incredible. Because the quest matches his rank, she tells him she can't really refuse it, though you can still see worry creeping across her face. She leans in and warns him to be extra careful, then adds that he should grab some potions if he can spare the money, while Nero just waves her off and dashes out. Fleur suddenly snaps back to something about the hero's party from yesterday, blurts it out, but they've already vanished. At the market, Nero leans in and asks Suimu, "Want to grab something to eat before we head into the forest?" He grins and asks her if she wants an apple, laughing like he can't believe just how hard that little slime goes for fruit. He also says they've got to stop by the church later to quiz the priest for potions, but then the moment he finishes, then the knight leader from his old party bursts in out of nowhere, barks his name, and Nero freezes dead in his tracks. Nero whips around and finds Guy seething with pure annoyance, while Suimu keeps right on munching her apple like nothing even happened. A guy bursts into shouting right away, demanding, "Why is Nero still here when you were told to get lost?" But Nero shrugs off the attitude and strides right into introducing Suimu to his old teammates. Guy stands stone still, all grim-faced, and lets everyone know right then and there that he's the hero of the whole group. The rest of the party jumps in right after Fia steps up and tells everyone she's the mage, while Serena immediately claims the role of the healer. He glares down at the slime like it personally offended him, demanding to know what that tiny thing is even doing there. Nero leans in and tells her, "My name's Suimu," and says they've been riding together ever since they met just yesterday, so Guy just shoots her a cold glare with eyes squeezed shut, and that's when Nero has to ask, Do you have a problem with me? Guy snaps, says he's got nothing to hear from them, and barks. So when am I finally getting out of here? Nero stays stone calm and tells him straight up. He has zero plans to leave town. Nero leans in and tells you this is the very spot where his journey as an adventurer first began. He's so at ease in this city that it basically feels like home to him, so he keeps insisting, I'm not going anywhere. Guy just stands there radiating pure annoyance at the answer. Then, out of nowhere, he clenches his sword and snaps at Nero, telling him that with skills that weak, he'll never survive. In this town, he leans in and orders Nero to ride west to a place called Norland. Nero's brow furrows as Guy lays it out. This is just a quiet rural town with puny monsters and kind-hearted people all around. Nero freezes mid-step and can't help but wonder. He leans in and asks Guy if he was really worried about him, and Guy suddenly freezes like a deer in headlights. Guy starts screaming for him to shut up, right before he cuts him down while Nero clocks that the logic doesn't match. They still kick Sumu out anyway. Nero lifts Sumu up and asks Fia if she wants to touch the tiny slime, but she's staring like she can't bring herself to. Nero gets thrown off guard too, then he breaks it down. Suimu isn't scary at all, she's actually super friendly and she lives for the attention, letting him get all the petting he wants. While Fia acts like she's doing him a favor and Serena just barges in. Nero caught it, those guys in the back weren't just watching, they were glaring like daggers, ready to jump in for a turn too. Serena can't stop wondering if they're only jealous of Suimu, and then she snaps, Nero, where were you? He was already set on it, so he tells her, I'm headed to the church to get. Serena tells him to get healing magic poured into his water, and then she asks if it's ready, and Nero stared at the bottles. Then she told him, hold them just like that, don't move a single thing. Serena snaps her eyes shut and unleashes her magic on the spot, right where she stands. She lets the power spill into the bottles, tells him it's all ready, and then, just like that, Nero gets left behind. Serena tells her that Nero didn't forget her. He actually left some magical water for her at the hero's place, swearing it was just his way of paying her back. Nero just stared, totally blown away. He'd honestly expected her to toss the water out, not actually use it. The guy on the party team snaps, yells at Nero to just take the gift already, because Serena clearly busted her ass to make it happen for him. Nero grins, thanks her, and swears he'll cherish it, while Fia lingers behind them, still clutching Suimu like she's not ready to let go. Serena thrusts it into his hands and demands he use it for real, no excuses, especially the moment he's thrown into danger. Fia looks like it hurts to let go, but she tells Nero, I'm giving Suimu back to you right now. She lets out a shy blush as she thanks him for letting her cuddle the little guy. That night leader totally kills the mood, barking at everyone to stop drifting and start moving, because they've got a schedule to smash through. Nero tilts his head as the leader barks his name one final time, and the tone is anything but friendly. He tells Nero to get the hell out of town, because he's finally found a cute little pet to replace him anyway. Nero leans down towards Suimu and growls, asking the little slime if he truly thinks he's cute, but then Guy completely snaps, turning beet red, screaming at Nero like, there's no way I felt that before, and even threatens to slice Nero into pieces. The party finally starts moving, and Nero just stands there alone on the street, watching his old teammates vanish into the town. Nero's face hardens, and he realizes Guy's parting words didn't sound like an insult at all. They screamed a warning. Stay away. He also clocks that not a single soul in the party can even spot his brand new crest. So he grins at Suimu and tells him it's time to roll out. While the whole town buzzes with people rushing through their days, a watcher slips into the shadows, quiet, unseen, and locked on every single move. A man in a dark hood with a monocle steps out like he owns the night, and he greets Guy saying, man, it's been way too long since we last met. Guy and the girls suddenly freeze, eyes blazing with irritation, because the second guy clocks the old man and realizes it's Hilton. The anger hits hard. Hilton nudges his glasses back, says, I was watching you two just now, and basically points out how friendly that guy looked with Nero. The guy shoots him a disgusted glare, then snaps at the old man that stalking people like a creep is a nasty habit he needs to kick. Hilton watched Nero storm off, then snapped that his master was finally starting to lose it, turning to Guy and demanding what the hell he was really trying to pull. He stares at the kid grinning with slime in hand, stunned that someone like him, pure trash, can still be alive, and it all starts to gets. That snaps Hilton into an even bigger rage. He points at Guy and hammers it in. The whole plan was to wipe out Nero, not whatever chaos they're running right now. Guy flat out warns him not to misunderstand, because they kicked Nero out of the party for real, and it's crystal clear they're not friends. Hilton halts mid-step, stares at the word banished for a beat, and fiddles with his glasses like he's trying to crack the meaning open. The guy struts like he's got everything figured out, swears Nero's reputation is about to crash to rock bottom, and tells that person to be grateful, because he's ready to turn them into a total social wreck. But Hilton isn't having it. He snaps at Guy that his boss would never want something so tiny and that the party should have known better. Hilton spits that his master can't stand the truth. How can someone as useless as Nero even exist in this world? As the master stares at Nero walking off from the family estate, Hilton sneers that Nero only got permission to leave because the master didn't want to stain his own hands. Hilton's face says it all, he's done, then snaps at Guy that destroying his name is nowhere near enough, especially since the real order was to finish him off for good. Hilton adjusts his glasses, his face tight with irritation, and snaps at the guy that this mess has officially turned into a full-blown problem. He locks eyes on the other guy's backs and demands, "Are you seriously planning to double-cross the master?" And that's when everything. Guy tries to calm the chaos and insists he's not starting anything, but the girls in the back look even more nervous, like they already know people just need to think. The guy points out, "Our name's finally climbing in the guild. So if we wipe out a teammate just because he's weak, the whole public will see it and call us pathetic." He keeps pushing forward, insisting that if they're winning, then Giller's winning too. Because the last thing Guy wants is headlines blowing up over some sloppy mistake. Hilton pauses, rubs his chin, and finally admits there might be real logic behind what Guy is saying. He says that because Guy's family lives under the Axis house, the master will be thrilled to see him rise up as a hero. So Wilton whips around like he's done with this, telling them the vibes they're all right. But the master will never accept anything less. Guy's palms start sweating and his face goes wide-eyed when Hilton just blurts that he'll handle the whole job himself. And before Guy can even get a word out, Hilton starts striding off with a cold stare, and Guy and the others are yelling at him to stop and wait up. The forest is packed with thick trees and blooming roses. So quiet it feels like the whole world just stopped, like something's about to happen. That's when these creepy tree monsters start bursting up from the grass, growling, snarling, and crawling in from every side with nightmare-inducing sounds. Nero wastes 0 seconds. He barks for his water gun magic and unleashes blistering, high-pressure blasts that rocket through the air and smash straight into the creatures. Water erupts around him as he smirks like, "Yeah, that's a great start," and then boom, a vine tore out of the dirt right at his feet, yanking all his focus away and forcing him to jerk back in pure surprise. He fires off another water gun spell to blast the vines back before they can snare him. But the timing's getting brutal. Nero pauses mid-stride, and it hits him. Sure, the big trees look easy, but these plant monsters melt into the woods, and trying to land a shot on them feels like hunting shadows. He's in trouble. Those heavy spells could shatter the blue rose he's hunting, and his water whip can't slice through these vines no matter how hard he tries. He knows that mowing through them is his path to victory, but right then, he halts mid-fight, because he finally clocks how his magic actually functions. Nero keeps locked on the damage his spells leave behind, like even those tiny shots, or the bendy whip, still smash through with real power. Nero starts mulling over this wild idea, how water stays the same weight even when you totally change its shape. So he can't stop imagining this. What if he forces the water to thin out and turn razor sharp, way more than before? Suddenly, a massive wave of energy tears through the forest air, as Nero puts his theory to the test. He stares at his own hand, shocked beyond words, because he just forged a brand new spell, the Water Sword. Nero's convinced that blade will slice clean through the plant monsters, and Suimu chirps right along like, "Yep, that's it." He drops into a crouch to stare at the flowers, and it hits him hard. Sure, fighting's doable, but hauling thousands of roses is the real nightmare. Nero's freaking out, convinced that grabbing a mountain of flowers while he's fighting off monsters is going to be a disaster. That's way too much work, until he realizes the roses he just picked are gone. He totally loses it when he sees Suimu's body bulging out. Somehow that tiny menace just ate every single rose in the pile. Nero tells Suimu, "That kind of storage is unreal. You're making the whole harvest feel 10 times easier." Nero leans in and tells Suimu, "This grind is brutal, but we give it everything we've got and finish strong." He snaps the numbers and boom, there are only 200 left, so he knows that once they snatch the blue roses, they'll finally smash their goal. Suddenly Nero screams in shock as the ground under his feet starts to tremble. And he can't believe what he's seeing as a huge mound of earth starts swelling up right in the middle of the forest. Nero snaps back in an instant, right as massive thorny vines burst from the dirt, tearing into the ground. And then, a colossal, terrifying plant monster bursts into view, rows of razor teeth, strange tentacles waving, staring straight ahead like it's out for something. Scary stuff hits, and Nero finally admits this thing looks like a truly terrifying opponent, while Suimu chirps nervously the whole time. The monster wastes no time. It lashes out and hurls a brutal, thorny vine straight at him. So Nero screams for his water sword magic, slicing a razor-sharp liquid blade into the air just as the vine charges. It comes flying at him, but he jukes midair and the hit crashes into the ground instead. Nero gritted his teeth as he realized this monster wasn't just stronger. It was on a level he'd never faced before. He's dead sure if he slams into the ground at this speed, he's done for. Right on time, Suimu hulks up into a massive cushion and catches him. Then he lands with this shockingly soft thump. Nero freezes in utter shock, staring at the little guy as he blurts out, "How the heck did you get this big so fast?" He lets out a shaky breath and thanks Suimu for pulling him back from death. Then right in the moment, he suddenly spots his friend. It shrank even tinier than before, utterly wrecked from burning through every last bit of that energy. That giant plant monster won't let up for a second. It keeps surging forward, piling on the pressure, and driving them to the edge as it closes in. Nero groaned through the pain as he fumbled to get his footing and shake his head clear. Gazing up at that monster, he can't help wondering if he's got even a sliver of a chance against something this colossal. But he clenches his fist and screams in his own head that he's not some useless water mage who got frozen the moment the fight started. When Suimuget comes into view, Nero realizes she burned through every last bit of her energy just to save him. And that's how he knows. He can't keep burning through her powers forever. He's got to learn how to stand on his own and do it without her. He can still see the goddess molding water into a razor, and now he's asking himself, can he pull off the same impossible trick? As the giant plant monster hurls more vines, they whip toward him and stab through the air. Nero shouts his new spell, Shield of the Water Guardian ****, and a brutal wall of water crashes down around him. It wrapped all around him, and when he realized what was happening, he just barely nailed the solution. Right on time, leaving him breathing easy. But when he peers at the monster through the water, he realizes straight-up guarding won't save him this time. So he shoves his worries aside about the mess his magic could cause. Because he simply can't afford to pause and hesitate. Anymore, he pours every last ounce of power into his palm, then starts chanting for one final. A massive strike rocks the scene, and he hurls a heavy water bullet that smashes into the beast so hard it bucks and shatters. Nero thinks he finally wiped out those annoying tentacles, so now he's ready to lock in on. He's going for the main body, then blasts out even more water magic, only to freeze in disbelief when the monster snaps its vines back into place like nothing happened, and that's when he realizes there's no end to this nightmare, because it just won't stop regenerating, and it's already charging toward its next big. A massive attack comes in, and Nero snaps his gaze to Suimu, wondering if he should back off, but before he can even think, the monster tilts its core upward and blasts its way into the sky. Nero snapped his head up and saw the strike diving from above, and he barely kept his shield up as the projectiles tore through the air and blasted into a brutal downpour, smashing into his water barrier and splashing everywhere. He realizes the liquid is actually acid, and if it lands on him, it's game over. Bad news, then he freezes, staring at the monster's movement because it feels way too strange. Nero slams on the brakes, spots the pattern in the monster's movement, and his mind races. If that's how they move, what happens next? As the monster lunges from far away, a fresh trail of earth erupts beneath it, and Nero glares at the ground, waiting. With a smug, confident grin, he challenged the monster, like, "So you think you're the one that cut me off after that run?" Then he screams that the creature has it all backward, and reveals it was him who lured the monster right here. With a snap of motion, he shoots his hand out, and slams the world into a thunderous, massive rain of magic. Magic crackled as he shouted, "Water magic acid rain." Then the liquid came crashing down, and the giant plant got drenched all the way through, completely no escape. Then it starts to hiss and slump, and Nero's mind races like, "This was my first time ever bending how water moves." But somehow it all worked out. Because that monster had kept its distance from the acid before, and he just knew that was its one glaring weakness. And he admits he only moved because he couldn't stand watching his blue rose melt anymore. He's standing over the pile, breathless. Right in the middle of that melted wreck, he spots something off. Then a tiny object starts glowing out of the chaos. Nero digs a glowing crystal out of the plant's melted wreckage, holding it up and demanding, "Is this a magic stone?" As Suimu starts bouncing around him, blasting happy little noises, and Nero finally glances at the little guy and then realizes he has to handle his own injury first, and he blurts out that Serena deserves the credit for the gear, because without her, he'd be done. And he starts sloshing that healing liquid onto his injured leg. In the background, Suimu hops around and lets out a huge squeak like. Nero wraps things up, glances over, then freezes when he realizes Suimu has shrunk way smaller than before, and he blurts out, "Are you even okay?" That tiny slime chirps back, buzzing with excitement. So Nero leans in and asks if it wants some of this water of life, but then Suimu just starts trembling and whipping his head back and forth like he's possessed. And Nero can't help watching, trying to understand what in the world is happening. He keeps going until he finally clocks the little guy is thirsty. Then he asks if he wants a drink and cups his hands to offer it. He just blasts their insides full of water, Then Suimu dives right in and gulps every last drop as fast as he can, until he's bursting with light and back to his old self. Then he squeals with pure joy and Nero just grins. Nero watches Suimu ricochet around and blurts out, "It's wild, he can bounce back from anything just by chugging water." And now that the little guy's finally feeling better, Nero pushes them to snag the remaining blue roses, so they can rush back home at last. They burst back into town and rush straight to the building, hauling the goods inside and dropping them off fast. Floor and the shop guy just stand there, mouths hanging open, absolutely stunned by what they're seeing. As Suimu hurls out a mountain of flowers, Fleur can't even process it. How in the world were they all hiding inside that slime? The shop guy stares like he's witnessing a miracle, admitting he's never seen a slime pull something like this, while Nero drops the truth. That's the entire haul. Nero whips out a magic stone and asks if you're ready to break down the ones he snagged from the monsters in the forest. Fleur says it'll be a huge boost for figuring out the local monsters, promising she'll pass them to the right people, while the shop guy leans in and tells Nero he's absolutely crushing it. Fleur clamps onto the stones and tells Nero straight up, hunting through all those roses is gonna eat up at least 2 or 3 hours. Nero reasons they might as well swing by for a late lunch, and Suimu bursts into a joyful squeal at the thought. He starts to leave with a tiny slime chilling on his shoulder. Then, right as he's about to go, someone shouts his name. Fleur stands there frozen in disbelief, clutching the stone in her hands and demands answers from Nero. Did he really wipe out the monster it was stolen from? And Nero flashes her a laid-back smile like, "Yep, this whole mess was all my water magic." Fleur freezes, dripping sweat, unable to make sense of it as Nero smirks and promises he'll swing back later. The shop guy bursts out laughing and goes, "Oh, that's a great one. Because everyone knows water magic is basically worthless in a fight. And somehow it always gets the worst end of the deal, but here's the kicker, magic stones are insanely rare. You might stumble on them in mines sometimes, but those places are so few and far between it feels like luck itself is hard to catch. Most of the time, they're stuck inside brutal monsters and wild magic beasts, stuff that shred a normal person the moment they try to handle it." So Fleur just freezes and stares at the gem in her hand, whispering in disbelief that Nero really does have. Is the only proof she needs to know he truly crushed that fight. She still can't believe it, so she presses him again. Did he really just use water magic to pull it off? Nero and Suimu step out onto the street, wondering whether they should waste a little time first, or just march straight to lunch. Nero grins at the tiny slime perched on his shoulder, and its cheerful chirps hit him like deja vu, same joy as before, so he turns to Suimu and asks if it wants fruit or a super juicy drink. But the second he clocks 3 mysterious dudes in long hooded capes marching straight toward him, his mood flips instantly. He can't shake the feeling that the whole group reeks of trouble, so he slips away, dodges the danger, and keeps moving before anything snaps. One of the hooded guys suddenly surged forward, slammed into his space, and cut him off before he could react. Nero freezes for a split second, and then it hits him, something big happened in that tiny gap. Then he jerks his head down, and when he sees his shoulder is totally empty, he throws back a stunned shout. The hooded guy sprints off, Suimu clutched under his arm, and Nero rockets after them with a screaming shout as they vanish into the streets. He barrels after them until, boom, he's trapped in a cramped, empty alleyway with nowhere left to go where. The whole gang is waiting on him right there. The leader smirks and leans in like, "Nero, looks like you've been stacking cash lately, huh?" Nero glares at them and demands answers. Why drag Suimu into this, and what they're really trying to pull by luring him out there. The big leader of the crew leans in and tells everyone those thugs from before. Yeah, his own henchmen, and since Nero messed with them, they're so broken up they can't even work. He steps right into Nero's space and snaps that as the boss. He can't just sit back while some small fry struts around like they don't deserve respect. Nero's stunt back at the guild left him in full-blown rage, because now some random guy had marched in and totally humiliated him. But Nero just doesn't get it. He goes, "So what does some random beef between the leader and that other guy have to do with me?" Nero stared them down and snapped that he couldn't believe they'd dragged themselves into all this trouble, just to kidnap his slime over some messed up grudge. And honestly, he blurts out that he has no clue who any of these people even are. That hits the guy gripping Suimu like a trigger. He yells for Nero to stop messing around with them, and the whole scene erupts. Nero stares at their faces for a beat, recognition hits, and he snaps, asking if they're the same sorry crew that tried to jump him earlier. He flashes a smirk and snaps, "About time," because Nero's the whole reason they're being treated like wanted criminals now, which leaves them in total chaos. No guild will take them, and every other adventurer is hunting them non-stop, turning their lives into one disaster after another. Nero refuses to back off and snaps at the group that this mess is basically all on them. Then he drills straight into Lara, but those thugs don't want excuses. one of the hooded creeps snaps at Nero to shut up and hand over every last coin. The leader smirks like trouble with teeth and tells Nero to just stare at the money and call it payment for every headache he caused. And it's obvious they've been grinding hard. When the hooded guy talks, he says they already know he cleared the Blue Rose quest, so he snatched the loot and immediately goes off, calling Nero a pitiful water mage who probably relied on shady tricks, then declares that reward is his now. Nero glares at them with pure disgust, snarling, "When did adventurers turn into nothing but a pack of lowlife thieves?" The guy gripping Suimu starts to lose it, snaps at Nero like, "Do you even realize what kind of mess you're in right now?" While the slime chirps right along, and tries to act all tough, straight up asking Nero what he's really planning, only for Nero to plant his feet and ask what happens if he says no. The thug doesn't even pause, grinning as he vows to carve up the slime first, then come for Nero, but Nero stays ice cold. Then he warns them, "Try anything stupid around here and boom, you're caught right away, and that's the end." The thug gripping the slime leans in and snarls at Nero that he better drop the naivety, because if he thinks they won't actually kill him, he's dead wrong. But the big boss in the middle shrugs and says, "Easy, just take out a kid and a slime. We've got fixers who do that kind of job." Some other guy with earrings bursts into laughter and tells Nero it's a pity he isn't a girl, because they'd have gotten way more fun out of him. The boss demands a last reply, hand over the cash or face death, and Nero just stares at the ground, muttering fine like he's finally cracked. But it's a total trap. Nero suddenly hurls a fistful of coins straight into the leader's eyes, and the guy instantly loses control, wrecked by pure pain. Nero screams for the move, launches his counterattack, and right on the spot, snaps out water magic to yank his friend back. The thug is still totally blinded, helpless as the water whip crashes around Suimu and yanks the little guy free. Then everything happens so fast, it cuts off mid-scream, making Suimu squeak with joy. Nero swoops in grinning and welcomes him back, but the rest of the gang is already blowing their tops. The guy with the earrings is fuming, snapping that Nero is just pulling out even more bizarre tricks to beat them again. They all pile in at once, unleashing a roaring wind blade and a triple-shot arrow barrage to finish Nero for good. Nero slams down his water guardian's defensive spell shield, whoosh, and a towering wall of water erupts to blast the wind and arrows out of the way. The earring-wearing thug and the archer girl both froze in shock, shouting in disbelief as the move hit them, like they couldn't even process what they'd just seen. Nero doesn't let them catch a breath. He snaps straight into his next water magic attack, right at his fingertips. He screams his water gun spell and blasts them with high-pressure streams, completely freezing the guys in their tracks. And the water slams into the leader and the archer girl square in the face, blasting them backward like they got hit by a wave of pure force. That thug with the earrings is furious. Nero dodged the first wave again, but he's convinced Nero is finally close enough to get hit for real. The thug bursts in with a martial arts move called asterisk severing boost asterisk asterisk, but Nero's already slipping into position to block him. And that guy's jaw drops hard when he realizes Nero is gripping a sword made purely out of water. The thug struts in, trying to sound fearless, bragging that he'll win the sword fight no matter what Nero pulls, except he's already clutching his face since the sword's water keeps spraying back right into his eyes, blinding him completely. The earring thug gets smashed with a brutal hit to the back of his neck, then starts folding over like he's breaking, feeling the Nero's explanation hits like a truck, and in one brutal move he just slams the back of his blade into him, knocking him out, leaving. He wipes out the rest and leaves the leader gasping as the final one standing. Then he leans in and asks, "So it's like that?" while his hand dives into the pouch on his belt. And then he explodes into trash talk, sneering that Nero's just a petty coward for hiding his real strength with water magic like some kind of worm. Nero shrugs off the insults, then straight up points out that the other two guys are already done for, so he just stands there waiting to finish what comes next. So he tells the leader to quit right now, and the guy just bursts into laughter, then drops that he's got bad news for him. The leader yanks out a massive spear and brags that if his entire crew charged him all at once, they still wouldn't stand a chance. Nero gets blindsided, staring at the spear like, did they tuck this into a magic bag? And panic starts to creep in because the thug drops the mask, his crest is the spear. He smirks like he's about to prove he's not all talk, and as the weapon lights up you can feel the real skill coming. He rockets upward into the air, snaps on the martial art Rui spear, and drops like a meteor straight for Nero's head. Nero screams the moment the brutal attack rockets in, snatching Sumo against him to shield him from the blast. The leader plants his feet and lays it out. Sure, a spear usually keeps him at a longer distance, but tonight he's got even more than that. He brags that his special martial arts could stretch his reach even farther than any ordinary weapon ever could. He roars that he's basically untouchable and charges straight at Nero, who barely manages to snap up a circular water shield in the nick of time. He gets furious and snaps that Nero is a full-on coward, swearing he's hiding a steel plate inside that water magic. Because he's convinced a plate is blocking him, he drops all caution, plants his aim, pierces straight through it and starts. With the next move loading in his bones, he roars, unleashing his spiral lance. Watch that spear spin up with jaw-dropping, insane force. The drilling spear crashes into the water shield, and Nero feels that brutal impact hammer through his bones as he powers up. He groans through the pain as blood starts to drip from his hand, like the attack's force is finally breaking through. The leader just smirks and calls the shield tough, but you can see the question burning in his head. How long can it take his non-stop hits before it breaks? Nero's worry spikes. His water shield can't hold out against that spear's insane power for much longer. And it hits him, he needs a brutal counterattack. But he has to keep his magic on the down low so he doesn't blow up the whole city. The guy's spear is whipping forward at lightning speed, and Nero can't even get his water spells ready in time. So he dreams of a way to slam an opponent with a hit, without ever stepping beyond the safe bubble of his shield's range. Nero abruptly halts, eyes widening like he just struck gold. Maybe this insane idea could actually work, he just needs one quick second to act. He just couldn't stop thinking it through, wondering if a water strike could slip right through his own barrier, since both were the same element. He lunges forward, yelling "Water Lance," and blasts a beam of water straight through his own defenses. The leader's jaw drops, he's completely stunned, and he screams, still reeling, unable to wrap his head around what Nero just did as he rips into Nero, calling him a total coward for hiding a move like that up his sleeve. And then he keeps going. He hurled himself back into the fight, screaming with every hit, and unleashed a non-stop storm of stabs that never let up. The leader barrels forward, screaming that his water magic is the real deal as he unleashes that non-stop spear crash barrage. He's still yapping about how Nero's been getting under his skin for way too long, and he swears that kind of magic can't touch a spearcrest holder like him so Nero just stays ice calm, then starts chanting his own water magic, like he's about to break the whole fight wide open. He flips the whole situation, shouting "Water Whip," as he lashes out several long, writhing streams of water, snaking around their leader until he's fully trapped and surrounded. He's totally thrown off guard, sweat pouring down his face as he stares at the water spiraling around him. Then he can't help but panic and wonder what the hell is happening, while, as he tries to crack Nero's plan, he fires the question. Did Nero make him block earlier just to lure him into position for a strike from that blind spot? Even as worry creeps onto his face, he forces a tough act and snaps that Nero's tricks are completely pointless. Nero looks completely unfazed and tells him, plain and simple, this match is already over, decided right here. He locks eyes with the guy and hits him with a straight, hard question. Does he really know just how heavy water can be? The leader whips his head up at the towering wall of water, then roars that Nero's spitting nonsense, because there's no way water could be heavy, right? Nero seals the move by shouting his water hammer spell. Then a brutal slab of water comes crashing down like a giant weight. The brawl shuts down instantly. While the town goes death quiet, Nero whips out a tiny bottle, pours its liquid over his hand to clean up the scratches from that fight. He tells Sumui he's grateful they hauled in some water of life, and then he admits they owe Serena big time for stepping in, so yeah. He glares down at the thugs, brain already racing for the next strike, and for a moment he weighs whether to report everything to the guild. But then, that towering armored brute suddenly appears at the alley's end, staring at the wreck like it's personal. Then he turns to Nero and demands, "Did you do this?" Leaving Nero completely thrown off. This guy's got this wild, intense stare, and Nero can't for the life of him figure out what's going on. He keeps closing the distance, sounding so damn impatient that he demands Nero give him an answer right now. So Nero starts backing up, until his back slams into a brick wall, suspicion snaps in and he fires off a question. Wait, are you really one of the thug's friends? Then he snatches Suimu and shields him, telling that guy if he stays with them, he won't get to touch the slime, not even once. But this armored guy just stares, utterly lost. He keeps repeating the money part and the threat about laying hands on anyone like he has zero clue who Nero even is. The armored guy drops into a crouch and demands, "Tell me I'm right, those thugs were really shaking Nero down, weren't they?" Nero admits it's true, and the man leans in, saying the guild already has warrants out for the trio. Plus, he's heard rumors that someone's been lurking in the background, quietly helping them out with. That snaps Nero's memory. He brings up the spear guy's warning, and the armored man just nods like the pieces finally clicked. But Nero's still totally lost, so he finally blurts out who the guy really is because, before the guy even gets his name out, the man locks eyes with him and blurts out, "I'm Sanders Thor, Guild Master of the Adventurers Guild Lee," leaving Nero completely stunned, because Sanders says everyone just calls him Master. And Nero is still trying to wrap his head around the fact he's talking to the big boss. Nero introduces himself, just Nero. Sanders repeats it under his breath like the name hit a familiar nerve, staring at the kid with fresh, sharp curiosity. But then he slams the brakes and demands, "Wait, do you seriously go by just one name?" Nero's suddenly looking pretty uneasy. Clutching his hand right on his crest, he snaps that his family name used to be Axis. But after he got exiled, he's been barred from using it ever since. So he snaps his gaze up and right then he confirms it. Starting now he's Nero. Sanders Thor shrugs it all off and basically says, "Either way work's done." He tells Nero it's time to get moving and the poor kid freezes, asking, completely lost where they're even heading. Sanders grins and says, "We're clearly headed straight for the Adventurers Guild." And then the whole plan clicks into place. The second they step inside, Fleur's eyes go wide, like she just saw a ghost. She can't believe what she's seeing. Why is Nero just strolling around with the biggest boss in the entire guild? Sanders grins and swears the timing couldn't be better, then tells Fleur she's the one who's handling the guys outside, which only leaves Fleur even more rattled as she repeats the word back to him. Turns out the thugs who tried to rob Nero were already plastered all over wanted posters, and they even snagged their leader. The guild staff look at their records and find more sins than anyone can count, so they drag them in for an interrogation. Sanders turns on his heel and tells Nero, "Come with me upstairs, we need a private talk." That tall girl with flowing hair swung the door open and stepped in, smiling at the room, leaving Fleur completely off balance as she looked over. She glances over and Fleur tells the visitor, "If you're hunting the guild master, he just slipped into a private room with the new adventurer girl." She takes the news without a flinch, nods like she gets it, and calmly says she'll just wait right there until they're done. Down the hall in one of the private rooms, the vibe goes stone-cold serious as Sanders slides into the seat across from Nero, he leans in and tells the kid, "I've got something huge I need to ask you," and the tension spikes right away. So Nero just stands there and blurts out, "What does the guild master want to know?" Sanders yanks out a huge magic stone and fires back at Nero, demanding to know how he really managed to beat the beast that thing was ripped from the agrafleshen. Nero just lifts his hand and says, "I got the water crest, so I went all in with water magic, and that's how I won." Sanders locks eyes with him, a razor-sharp glare demanding the kid confirm he's actually serious. But Nero doesn't even blink. He swears water magic is totally battle-ready, while Suimu chirps from his shoulder like he's got Nero's back. Sanders strides across the room with his back turned, firing off this wild tale to the kid, and calling it impossible to believe, saying everybody knows water magic has no real power in a fight and Nero barges in, grabs the guildmaster's attention and snaps right to his face that there's more to it. Water's heavier than people think, and that's when he leaves him hanging. And it freezes Sanders on the spot. He blurts the words back like they're the craziest thing he's ever heard, while Nero's gut tightens because something feels seriously wrong. Suddenly Sanders throws his head back and totally snaps. He bursts into this huge laugh that fills the entire office, and Nero just stands there, frozen and painfully awkward. As the big guy wipes the tear from his eye, he leans in and tells Nero that the plan will hit him like a total surprise, and that it's honestly the funniest thing he's heard in ages. Nero digs in his heels anyway, straight up telling the master he's not playing. Then he swears to the heavens that he's saying the full, honest truth. But Sanders' eyes snap with a sharp glare and the laughter dies in his throat. He leans in and demands, "Are you serious?" Because he can't possibly swallow a tale that wild just from hearing it. He tells Nero that if he's not lying, then talk won't cut it. He'll have to back it up with real power, and then he cuts him off mid-sentence. He jabs a thumb at his own chest with a feral grin, then tells Nero, if he wants respect, he better step up and face him right now. That totally blindsides Nero. He just freezes on the spot, jaw hanging open, completely shocked that he's really expected to duel the guild master. The two of them charge down into the guild's underground training ground, a massive stone arena made for serious battles, where Sanders is all business. He tells Nero the entire place is sealed in protective magic, and warns him the defenses are so brutal that even a tiny scratch won't trigger them, which leaves him yelling at the kid to go all out because he can't even die in the first place. Nero just stands there, looking like he's barely holding it together. But Sanders isn't finished talking. He flashes his gear like it's a trophy, boasts he's got both the crest of the fist and the crest of lightning, and crowns himself a true dual wielder. He shoots Nero a wild stare and warns him to remember that, or else right before they dive in. In the world of crests, if you've got two or even more of them in your hands, everyone calls you a dual attribute user. And yeah, it's crazy rare to find someone who carries both a magic crest and a martial crest. They're called hybrids, and everybody knows they pull off insane techniques that smash magic and combat together into moves that hit like a thunderclap. Nero freezes for a heartbeat, realizing this is the first time he's ever taken on a hybrid. And suddenly his brain can't stop spinning about what kind of insane fighting style is about to come at him. Then it finally clicks. He has no clue what his own satyr's crest even does. While he's spiraling inside his head, Sanders starts laying out the match rules. He explains it like this. The wind favors whoever's still standing, and the fight is over the instant someone can't move, or gets dropped clean out of the ring. Sanders shoots his hand out and tells Nero, "You're the magic type, so you get the first move." Up in the stands, some dude leans over and starts grilling the crowd. So is Nero really just a water mage? And right when the bell's about to ring, the crowd starts firing trash talk, swearing this fight ends in a second and calling the whole thing pointless. On the sidelines, Suimu's bouncing nonstop and squeaking like a maniac, hyping Nero up with every single cheer. Nero tilts his head and scans the crowd, then locks eyes with Layla. She's watching him. That's when it clicks. Standing toe-to-toe with the guild master is his perfect chance to blast everyone with just how unstoppable water magic really is. His eyes harden with a serious stare, and he blares out that he's done holding back. No more backing down. He unleashed his hydro jet spell, and a brutal blast of water roared across the arena straight for Sanders. Sanders gets completely blindsided by the sheer force behind it, grits his teeth and grunts as he scrambles to block the strike. But the blast is so brutal it shoves the big guy backward across the stone floor, and he yelps in total shock. Sanders snarls and slams his arm forward, punching straight through the crushing water pressure with a brutal strike that sends the air roaring free. Nero's grip tightens as sweat pours down his face, because he finally realizes he was insanely naive to think he could just shove the guild master out of the ring. Sanders roars that the real battle's finally begun, then surges ahead, his fist blazing with crackling electricity. So Nero dug his heels in and shouted for the Water Guardian's shield to rise up and snap in front of the incoming strike. Sanders roars as he hurls his thunder fist, crashing his palm straight into the wall of water, which sparks burst everywhere as the lightning crackling from his glove scrapes hard against the magic shield surface, until the whole thing detonates into a spray of tiny droplets, blasting both of them back across the arena. Nero slams to the ground, stunned. He's still thinking, "I was actually confident in that defense, because there's no way it should have been obliterated in one hit." Sanders just stands there staring at his own hand, like that whole exchange left a bitter wrongness he can't shake, and Nero clocks him hesitating and pounces. This is his golden moment to go on the offensive while the big guy's distracted. Nero lunges into the fight, screaming for his water gun magic, and blasts a ruthless stream of high-speed water bullets straight ahead. But Sanders just plants his feet and hammers every last one of them out of the air like it's nothing. Sanders smirks like he owns the place, tells the kid not to underestimate him. Then his fist crackles to life, glowing with raw lightning. So Nero refused to back down. He shouted a massive water sphere spell and hurled a giant ball of water to crush it all. The guild master doesn't even blink. He just stares Nero down while crackling electrical energy whips around him, rising higher and higher. Then he roars out his thunder force fist and hammers all that raw power into the ground. Boom. An earth-shaking explosion erupts that could. Nero gets completely blindsided, his eyes dart in panic, until Sanders suddenly shows up behind him and snaps, "You're too slow." Nero tries to pivot and slam a Water Guardian shield into place, but he's only halfway through the chant when Sanders catches him with a whirlwind thunder kick. He drives a massive, electrified boot straight into Lee's ribs, and leaving Nero completely stunned and gasping for air, as he realizes that this big guy's speed is on a whole different planet. Nero's legs are barely holding him up, and as his thoughts spiral, he realizes he's on the razor's edge of collapsing. He's about to pass out as he skids across the floor, a cold realization hits. If he keeps pushing like this, he's about to blow straight out of bounds. He clenches his teeth, furious and stuck, feeling like the world just slammed shut and there's no escape from this mess. Then he bursts out yelling, "I'm not done," and whips out a thin stream of water that lashes forward, cutting the air right as everything comes to a halt. It totally blindsides Sanders, freezing the giant on the spot as he's left staring at the kid like, "What are you cooking?" A giant leash of water snakes across the arena, snapping them into one unbreakable link. Nero slams onto the ground and skids to a stop, chest thumping as he realizes, "Yeah, that was one close call." Sanders squints at the tiny trickle of liquid and shoots, "Are you seriously telling me, Nero, this is water too?" Nero locks eyes with him and straight up confirms it. He's got way more moves left in him than anyone thinks. As Sanders stares at the kid, it hits him. Maybe he's been pulling his punches, because Nero isn't like the other guys who showed up before. Nero's running on pure fumes, but he keeps talking to himself. If he backs off now, his water magic will never be taken seriously again. And if that happens, nothing will ever change. So he grits his teeth, gets his nerve back, and roars that he's not hesitating anymore. Sanders just freezes, completely stunned, grunting as it clicks. This kid has somehow cracked a second wind. He stares at Nero and says the look in his eyes has totally flipped. Yet instead of backing off, Sanders drops into a low stance and declares he's matching that energy. Then all that wild lightning starts crackling and sparking around him. He rips out this insane technique, Thunder Tiger Fierce Assault, summoning a colossal electric tiger that literally comes roaring to life. That beast rushes in to slam into Nero, but he stays ice calm, wand leveled, ready for the hit. Nero screams for his heavy water bullet and blasts a thick sphere of water straight into the tiger's path. The water bullet smacks the lightning tiger right in the face, and it just. Right then, the whole arena erupts in blinding light as the two spells smash together and explode like a bomb. The lightning tiger gets torn to pieces by the blast, exploding into ruin as it shatters and crashes down. Rock shards explode through the air, yet Nero just stands there, watching the dust finally settle. Suimu is practically bursting with joy, squealing happily like he can't hold it in because Nero snatches the little guy up in his arms, and when Suimu rubs against him, Nero belts out a loud shout. The whole crowd starts losing it, and one guy screams, "I can't believe Nero actually beat the master." Suddenly, people start whispering that Nero was meant to have weak water magic, and they can't believe he actually won. Then bam, Sanders explodes into yelling that he's lost, and Nero jolts a little. Sanders slumps against the busted wall looking wrecked, and lets out a heavy, exhausted sigh. He tells Nero, "I never thought I'd get crushed like that," then fires off, "So what was that water magic you pulled?" Sanders rubs his neck and snaps that if he hadn't thrown up a shield, that hit would have killed everyone else too. Sanders is wrecked from that fight, so Nero rushes over and blurts out an apology for going too hard. But Sanders just shrugs it off with a laugh, flicking a potion bottle like it's nothing, claiming it was a fair match. Then he admits it's wild he had to heal himself with the potion he brought for Nero. Nero stares at him like he's about to crack, then finally blurts the big question: did his magic actually pass the test? Sanders flashes him a huge, confident grin and swears, no doubt about it, that it definitely did. The moment he locked eyes on that first spell, he swore it was already sealed. Because that water magic was so impossible it didn't even feel real. Then he cut himself off and said, "And then the sand." Sanders leans in and asks what rank Nero's holding right now. Nero shrugs and says he's still stuck at E rank. Sanders doesn't even pause. He straight up declares that from today Nero is officially a D rank, and Nero just freezes there, utterly stunned. He can't even process it, so he grabs Sanders and demands to know, "Are you really sure you want to promote him like this?" Sanders waves it away like it's nothing. Because Nero didn't just drive off a monster, he also took down the master with his own hands. Nero stared at him like he'd just seen a ghost, basically saying, "I can't believe Sanders is actually taking our match that seriously." Sanders snaps at Nero for being stupid, because during their fight he wasn't slacking, he was genuinely trying his hardest. And he grins as he says, "A real fight to the death hits way harder than sparring," and that answer makes Nero look absolutely slammed with stress. Sanders admits that no matter how high the pressure gets, he's seen Nero's strength and that water magic is the real deal. So when he says it, Nero practically gets hit with a wave of relief. But then Nero starts grumbling about how brutal his water magic feels, and Sanders instantly shoots a hand up like, "Hold it, don't." He locks eyes with Nero and tells him, "Yeah, you're strong, but stop. From now on, don't go bragging about your power to anyone else." Nero demands to know why he has to hide it, but before Sanders can even speak, a girl's voice from behind gushes, "You're incredible." And Nero just freezes there, utterly baffled by the sudden compliment. A tall blonde girl with an athletic build strides toward them, grinning like she's about to change everything. Sanders flicks his gaze over his shoulder and calls out to the girl, "Eclair, were you watching us this whole time?" She's bluntly admitting it, then dropping the real shocker. She never thought she'd run into a kid who could actually beat her dad. Nero's eyes go wide like he just spotted a ghost, because the second he hears the news, his jaw drops so hard it's practically on the floor. Sanders stands there like an unbreakable wall, while Nero's voice stutters as his brain finally catches up. Wait, this tough guy is actually Claire's father. Sanders steps in and right to Nero's face formally reveals the truth. Claire is his daughter, and she's not just any kid, she's an adventurer. And Eclair flashes him a giant warm smile, then says, "Nice to meet you." Nero tries to play it polite and tells her it's nice to meet her too, but his face is blazing red. He can't stop his eyes from wandering. Sanders snaps into action right away, towering over Nero with a terrifying stare and snarling where he's looking like that. Then panic detonates in Nero's head instantly. The guild master smirks at the kid and leans in to warn him. His daughter's got a vicious temper, and if he so much as tries anything funny, she'll absolutely crush him. Eclair snaps at her dad to knock it off, then bursts into laughter, telling Nero she's not scary at all, even though her dad just claimed the exact opposite. She snaps to a new topic, then leans in way too close to Nero's face like she's trying to throw him off, leaving him so rattled he couldn't even squeeze out a single word. Eclair scoots in close with a teasing blush, and tells Nero right to his face that he's completely caught her attention. She blindsides him by asking him out on a date, and the poor guy sputters in total shock, while she just cackles at his stunned reaction. Sanders just stares it all down, a grim shadow on his face, and under his breath he growls that he knows exactly what's going on. The guild master just stands there, arms crossed, flashing that terrifying grin, and tells Nero they've both got to sit down for a serious talk. No jokes. He snaps at the kid to follow him to his office right now, and Nero can barely force out a yes. He's trembling so bad it's like he can't even speak. The second they step inside, Eclair shrugs off her dad's foul mood and starts blabbering nonstop, gazing at the slime on Nero's shoulder and demanding to know what it's called. Nero tells her it's swim time, and Eclair warmly greets the little creature. Then it chirps happily back at her like it's instantly adopted her. Sanders finally snaps. He erupts in a scream at his daughter, demanding to know why she thinks she can just storm into his office like she owns the place. Eclair doesn't even blink. She grins and needles her dad, asking if he's only putting on a tough act because he's dying to get the juicy details of her date. The guild master's about to combust as he demands, "Are you for real?" Then he whips a terrifying glare back at Nero. Eclair whips her head back to her dad, batting those innocent eyes, and asks like she totally didn't know, "Wait, I'm not supposed to follow you into the office." Nero gets shoved right into the spotlight and blurts out that he doesn't mind her being there, even though his nerves are practically screaming. Eclair just brushes it off with a laugh, says, "If the kid's cool with it, then we're good," and totally ignores her dad like he said nothing. He's sitting right there glaring like a storm cloud. Each second his stare gets more terrifying. Sanders finally rubs his head, drops into a giant sigh, and decides to let it slide for now. The guild master locks eyes with Nero and tells him, "You were watching earlier, now you've got to hear something important." He leans over his desk and leans in on Nero. "Was it you who said water's actually heavy?" Nero only nods and blurts, "Yes," and Claire freezes in total shock. She just can't get her mind around the fact that water even has weight. She starts replaying it in her head, and with the way Nero just fought her dad a few minutes ago, she can't help but admit that she might be onto something. And now Nero can't stop wondering if she's really got the brain to think that deep. Sanders Thor grabs Nero by the truth and warns him, this whole situation isn't a joke, and he's treating it way too lightly. He's breaking it down, how the whole world has always acted like water is weightless. Nero leans in, Suimu perched on his shoulder, and he blurts out that he used to believe the exact same thing. Then it hit him, this water wasn't normal, it was heavy as a curse. And all those unsettling vibes were the water flexing its power. Right when the talk gets going, someone throws out the wild idea. Maybe the water spirits aren't helping at all, and they're just messing with everyone. So it makes you wonder, are the spirits really working with Nero to help him? Sanders kills that idea instantly, straight up saying a basic watercrest can't pull off anything like that. Spirit users are on a whole other league. While Nero nods along, he silently hides the real truth. His target isn't just any symbol, it's the sage's crest. The guild master won't stop. He keeps insisting that everyone's been telling the same story forever. It's spirits messing with the water and causing all that weird stuff. And this is exactly what the church drills into everyone the moment they're old enough to listen. Sanders lays it out. Nero's discovery doesn't just change things, it detonates every belief people have clung to for years. Like the whole foundation just got ripped apart. He flat out says that's why Nero better keep his mouth shut, or he's gonna spark a whole storm of drama. Sanders demands, "Do you get it?" And Nero can only shoot a shaky nod, then swears he'll keep the whole thing secret. The guildmaster tells Eclair that her rules don't get special treatment. She nods and agrees, but Nero just clenches his own marked hand, admitting, yeah, he's not even out here looking for trouble in the first place. Standing there, Nero's mind snaps back to just how everywhere water really is, and how he used to ignore it day after day like it was never special. Only after it hit him that first time at the well did he realize he'd never truly felt what that water could do, not even close. It starts to feel like someone wiped his mind and convinced him water is useless. Then his thoughts get yanked away. When Sanders finally speaks up again, he calls out how Nero's magic is still insanely weird, no matter how much weight it carries. He stared him down in the eye to make sure that mark they'd given him was nothing more than a basic water crest. Nero stammers and sputters as he tries to defend himself, but Eclair just tilts her head like she's daring him. So he's saying the guild master is wrong about. Nero straight up admits he's just as clueless, then says a totally different crest just appeared on his hand out of nowhere. Eclair steps in, grabs his arm to inspect it, but she freezes, because she can't see a thing there at all. Nero tells them the mark isn't showing to anyone else, and that's when Sanders Thor glares at him like he's trying to rip the secret out of his soul. He kept saying invisible like he couldn't wrap his head around it, then suddenly surged in close and totally caught them both off guard. Sanders steps right up in his face and blurts out, So what, is there even a chance that hidden mark is really a black crest? Nero snaps that idea down in seconds and tells him, no, it's not black at all, it's a pale blue. Sanders finally reins in the panic, makes sure he heard right, and Nero just nods once. No words, just a quiet signal to keep the show rolling. With Eclair clamped onto his hand, Nero leans in and says the mark isn't random. It's called the Sage's Crest. Sanders is totally baffled. He's never seen a crest like that, while Claire admits she's just as clueless. Nero can't help but wonder if that crest is some insanely rare treasure, especially since the guild master can't even say what it is. Sanders Thor reclines and fires off the question. What in the world made the Sage's Crest show up on his hand in the first place? Nero admits he's not completely sure, but he suspects it all comes down to something he learned. The logic of waters. Sanders rubs his chin, repeats it under his breath like it's a puzzle, and finally nods. Yeah, I've got it. Eclair barges into the conversation and demands to know, since that mark appeared, has anything changed about him? Nero thinks for a second, then declares that his water magic is absolutely stronger. And with everything clicking now, new spells come to him so much easier. Sanders clings to the magic Nero showed them earlier and blurts out, wait, can you do even more than that? Nero fires back with a no-nonsense yes. And that single answer kicks things into motion right into him. He tells us, I only had 2 spells in my head, but the moment that crest showed up, I just started cooking up like 10 more. Sanders and Eclair both snap upright, freaking out in pure disbelief, screaming that he learned *10 new spells that fast. Sanders Thor is straight up losing control, demanding Nero spell out, clear as day, what exact time frame he's talking about for all of this. Nero's hands shake as he blurts out that it's only been going on for the last few days, then he stumbles over his words. A.N. Eclair is absolutely stunned. She can't believe it, because it took her a whole month just to begin and 3 more to actually reach anywhere. Sanders rubs his forehead, stressed out, saying most people quit after just a couple spells, so landing 4, that's top tier. He tells Nero to skip the D rank exam and jump straight to the C rank 1-2. So sudden it basically knocks Nero speechless. Eclair digs into her closet and tells Nero, I'm already set for that exam. If you get recommended, we'll go take it together right by. Nero asks if that's really okay, but Sanders just shrugs it off and tells him straight. This is the only honest read on his power, nothing else. He makes sure they don't miss a word, then both of them shoot back an instant. Got it, we won't forget. Eclair whips around because her dad's finally done with all that heavy, serious talk. She shoots Nero a huge grin, snatches his hand, and declares that the wait is over, date time is finally here. Eclair yanks Nero out of the room even as he's still trying to process it all, while Sanders Thor flips out behind them, screaming that there's no way he's letting them go on a date. Eclair doesn't even flinch. She tells her dad to calm down, then explains this date is really just the 2 of them teaming up to plan a dungeon run. Sanders starts grumbling about how they're getting way too touchy-feely. Then it clicks in his head, he freezes mid-sentence and blurts, wait, what do you mean a dungeon? Nero finally snaps back and slams Sanders with idiot, insisting that a dungeon crawl is absolutely not the same as a date. But Eclair just bursts into laughter with this huge grin, telling him, hey, that's one way to look at it. And suddenly the whole mess is even more baffling for everyone. As they stride out of the office, Nero keeps glancing at her, genuinely desperate to understand why she's got him targeted specifically. She flashes him a playful wink and a point, then says it's because he's the living, literal embodiment of everything she believes in. Nero is left totally speechless by that comment, and even Suimu chirps from his shoulder like it can't believe it just heard that. Nero tries to yank everything back into reality, telling her that the only power he can truly rely on is water magic. Claire doesn't even blink. She looks completely satisfied and tells him, that's exactly why you're perfect for what I'm planning. Eclair clamps onto Nero's hands and grips them hard, then snaps his focus onto her face, begging him to please try and team up with her into a party. Nero freezes, totally blindsided, and blurts out whether she's really serious about wanting to team up with him. Eclair barrels forward, grinning like she's won already, and tells him it's totally natural, because they're diving into that dungeon together. Nero's about to freeze. He starts stammering that he's just a nobody, and then his head fills with old memories of his old party leader screaming at him. Eclair locks eyes with him, wears total sincerity on her face, and dares him to give her just one chance to prove what she can do. Her expression totally gets him, and before he can stop it, Nero's cheeks flare red as he grins and tells her, I get it. Eclair cheers like she's on cloud 9, telling Nero they've got to go all out together. Then Nero smiles back and says the truth. He's the one who feels honored to be invited. She doesn't waste a second. She strides straight for the counter and blurts out that the very first thing they've got to do is grab their exploration permits. They stride up to Fleur and Eclair blurts her name. So Fleur tells the receptionist to process them and officially register them as a party. Fleur visibly exhales with relief as she listens. then tells Nero she's just happy he finally found a partner, and with it being Eclair, she can stop worrying about him altogether. Eclair stays all fired up. She even insists she's the one propping up Nero, because the way he tore through that match against her dad was just too damn impressive. Floor overhears it and absolutely snaps. She screams at Nero, demanding to know if he truly went toe-to-toe with the guild master. Eclair's face lights up with pure pride, and she starts bragging. Nero didn't just spar with him, he straight up won. The floor erupts into screaming, pure shock. Meanwhile, Nero just freezes there, awkward as hell, trying to process what she's hearing. But eventually she slams the brakes on her panic, gets dead serious and tells Nero straight up. When he started flying solo, she worried, so don't get cocky and ruin everything. Nero breaks into a huge, grateful smile, then tells Floor he's genuinely thankful she's been looking out for him like that. Floor just bursts into laughter and shrugs. I can't help it. For her, Nero is like a little brother. She refuses to leave him by himself. Nero smirks to himself, catching the thought of how she sees him like a younger brother. Then the moment crashes in and he stops mid-thought. Then Floor snaps back into work mode, eyes scanning the papers, and she asks the two of them where they're headed first. While they get ready, Nero can't help thinking, what if that big sister-style Floor would have made everything way nicer? Floor taps a picture in her book and declares that this exact dungeon is the perfect trial for both of them. Then she leans in and fires off a question to Nero. Be honest, have you ever done dungeon raids before? Nero blurts that he used to tag along with Guy's party, then admits, straight to the point, that he didn't really do much for them back then. Eclair's caught completely off guard. She blurts out, you mean that asterisk famous guy, the one with the real hero's crest? Nero tells her they've been together for a whole year, then drops the bomb that he's not in that group anymore. He glances at himself like he's not sure he belongs, then shoots Eclair a worried look, asking if she's disappointed that he's not with the heroes, but Eclair just stares at him like he's lost his mind. Wide-eyed, totally baffled, then demands, why would you even think something like that? She breaks into laughter and tells him she's honestly relieved it happened, because now she can finally throw a party with him. Then worry creeps in, and she blurts out that saying she's glad might have come off as pretty insensitive. Nero flashes her a warm smile, thanks her with complete sincerity, and makes it clear that hearing her say it finally settles his mind. Eclair's still a little lost in all of this, but then she smiles and says, as long as Nero's happy, I'm glad to. Watching them, the floor suddenly erupts with gushes about how fresh and innocent they both are. Floor lets out a weary sigh and grumbles that she wishes she was younger, but Nero snaps in fast that she's still got plenty of youth left. She swears up and down she's still in her 20s, but Eclair instantly shuts her down by clamping a hand over her mouth. Finally, they dive into the paperwork, grinning as the manager declares the registration is all set. She fires off a serious warning, stay sharp, because the dungeon isn't mapped out yet, and then the two of them just cheer like that scares them in the best way. The sun starts sliding down behind the guild walls as they scramble to finish up for the night. He flashed a clear wave goodbye, then told Nero, see you at the fountain 6 tomorrow morning. Nero promises he'll be right there as Suimu dozes off on his shoulder. Then he turns to leave, and everything changes as he's already mapping out a trip to the church for more holy water, completely clueless to the hooded guy stalking him from the shadows. Hilton shot up from the table after eavesdropping on Nero's talk, then wondered, are we really going to that dungeon? He realizes he just stumbled onto something huge, then immediately starts rubbing his chin, eyes locked on his next move. Hilton grabs his cane and bolts out the door. Then the moment he steps outside, a scruffy thug slams in front of him, growling to step aside and shut his mouth. No arguments, no questions. With a blade pressed straight into his back, Hilton stays ice calm and calmly says he understands A thug slips into the quiet hallway behind him, convinced he's finally spotted an easy mark to rob. He taunts Hilton, blurting that even with the robe on, the pricey clothes are still obvious. And then he presses, so how much gold are you hauling? He tells Hilton to hand it over, right now, if he wants to keep his life. But the old man rockets forward way faster than anyone ever expected. He drove a brutal slam straight into the thug's gut and knocked the wind out of him on the spot. Hilton looms over the guy on the floor as he grovels, begging him to admit he never truly believed that pathetic move would work on him. Hilton drives the thug's face into the floor and growls that he's been severely underestimated. With a blade pressed to the guy's neck, he calmly tells him how simple it would be to slit his throat right then and there. He snaps, drops to his knees, begs for forgiveness, and admits he never had a clue Hilton was this powerful. Hilton just locks eyes with him and demands, got any other friends around? And the guy panics as he stammers, yeah, but that old man isn't messing around. Answer that question for real or he'll kill you. He rattled the thug's confidence, warning him that places like this are loaded with crews just like his, and that every so-called local criminal is basically in the same friend group. Hilton lets out a long, thoughtful breath, like the news just hit him in the chest, and it looks like he's got a plan, yanks the guy's hair back and snaps. So you're really just desperate for cash, huh? He flashes a creepy smile and tells him, don't kill me. Maybe you've got a little job you can handle for me. Later on, Eclair leans in and warns Nero. Beast-type monsters are lurking in these mountains, so the whole group has to stay razor-sharp as they push through the woods. Eclair lets it slip that her dad straight-up told her, if Nero pulls any weird stunts on this trip, you come tell me, and she just laughs it off while Nero's mind races. Because if even the smallest misunderstanding hits the guild master, it could get terrifying fast. As they push deeper into the woods, a pack of wolves suddenly erupts from the shadows, and their growls hit the air like a warning. Nero's stomach drops when he spots the monsters, but Eclair shoots him a look and orders him to hang back, she'll handle the rest. Hurling forward before he can even get the words out. Because going in alone is a terrible idea, and he needs her to hear that now. She looks completely unshaken, fists locked tight around that massive weapon, and she braces to unleash one of her martial arts, right on the edge of landing it. She screams out her Thunderstrike hammer move and blasts the lead wolf with a crushing, electrified hit. The wolf goes down in a blink, and the rest of the pack bolts like it's the end of the world, while Nero and Suimu just stand there, stunned, mouths hanging open. Eclair pops up a peace sign and asks what he thought. Grinning as she explains her style blends the hammer crest with the lightning crest. Nero tells her he's honestly blown away. And as he says it, he can't help thinking people with dual crests really do live in a whole different league. Eclair strides ahead with her massive hammer, grinning like she owns the world, and tells everyone she's thrilled she finally got to show off. Then she drops the bombshell. She's figured out how to pull even more power than he just witnessed. Nero's totally blown away. He can't help asking how she's even pulling off stuff like that. Then she just lets out a small laugh. She winked at him and teased, I'm saving this as a surprise for later. They finally slam into the cave's pitch-black entrance and she points ahead. We made it, this is the dungeon. Where she blurts that she's getting a little nervous, while Nero's already hyped out of his mind, convinced first-time dungeon runs are pure adrenaline. Nero starts wondering how these dungeons just magically spawn out of nowhere, then vanish the second every last monster is wiped out. He kept telling himself, this one's fresh, so there's basically nothing yet on what's about to hit us inside. The moment they cross into the first room, Claire scans the place and mutters that the floor looks simple, so it should asterisk be easy, but Nero snaps, stay close to the walls. Right as her foot slams a floor tile with a loud click that totally catches her off guard. A trap snaps shut and launches a razor-crisp crystal dart straight from the wall. Nero shouts that someone get a clear line of sight and look out. And Davies lunged in and slammed into her, knocking her flat to the ground right as she burst out in a shocked cry. Nero steals a heartbeat to breathe, staring at the projectiles jammed in the rock, and realizing just how close that came. He stares down at her with a worried face, asking, hey, are you okay after that brutal tackle? Eclair blurts out that she's fine, but they both realize, right there on the floor, they've somehow ended up in the most awkward situation imaginable. Nero panics and scrambles off, blurting out a rushed apology for bumping them, while Suimu just stands there, watching the whole thing unfold. Eclair shrugs it off like it's nothing, pointing out that he'd already bolted out there at full speed to shield her from getting hit. She thanks him again, admits she would have been seriously hurt if he hadn't shown up, and that hits so hard Nero turns away. He tries to pull the conversation back to the dungeon, insisting that walking normally sets off too many traps, so they've got to stay pressed against the walls. Then he slams on the brakes, locks his eyes on a particular chunk of rock, and admits he's seriously worried about that wall. Crystal darts burst from the walls, and Claire barely catches her breath before she screams in shock. She glances at Nero, eyes wide with pure amazement at how he just crushed those traps, then blurts out whether he's secretly some kind of dungeon expert. Nero only smiles, then drops the truth. Back with his old party, he picked up a whole bag of tricks. He still remembers how his old leader was the ultimate trap hunter, cracking jokes that Nero only kept stumbling into them, because he himself was twisted enough to notice. Nero pushes through the memories, telling them to keep moving, just don't drop your guard. Right as they turn the corner, they slam straight into a swarm of rat soldiers, swords raised, bows drawn, and halberds at the ready. Nero spots them instantly, and Eclair shoots back that these are the very first real monsters they've faced so far. But before she can even move, Nero slides in front of her and roars that she needs to stay back, because he's taking this fight. He raises his magic gem, and Suimu clings to his shoulder as he launches into a chant for a water spell, and then he rips through them with a crushing water spear barrage, obliterating the rat soldiers before they even realize danger is flying their way. Nero insists the first floor's monsters shouldn't be too scary, but Eclair cuts him off before he can finish. She's totally losing it because he just wiped out the whole group in one savage strike, Nero's standing there completely baffled like, wait, So he asks if he messed up, but Eclair cuts him off. No, it's not that at all. She drops the idea of a test she's dying to try, then tells him, next time don't hold back, just soak those enemies with water. Nero shrugs it off and says, yeah, that's perfect, agreeing to settle the next encounter with nothing but simple water splashes. Eclair tells them to bolt as soon as they're done snatching loot from the rats, and Suimu chirps right along with excitement. But Nero snaps his head around to stare back, and Eclair catches it instantly. She blurts, what's going on? A creepy, gut-deep feeling hits him, like someone's staring right through him. Yet around them, there's not a single other person in sight. He can't help thinking he might just be paranoid, because they're stuck deep in a dungeon. And eventually he reassures Eclair, telling her not to sweat it, because it was probably just his imagination messing with him. Nero asks Suimu if she can handle hauling all the stuff they're finding, and she just snaps into action, vacuuming everything up as they push deeper into the cave, Eclair starts buzzing over the loot, while Nero kneels to inspect the antidote they just stumbled upon. He notes that every time they open one treasure chest after another, and somehow the whole run stays smooth as silk. He's totally blown away by Suimu's insane storage capacity, and while she chirps happily, he can't help but think she's not just smart, she's straight up cute. Eclair says they've mostly been surviving traps so far, but her curiosity is screaming, what's lurking around the next corner? They step into this huge open chamber, and there, giant frogs are just chilling on the rocks like they own the place. The moment the frogs realize they've got company, they start ribbiting like crazy and fill the whole place with non-stop noise. Eclair bursts into a huge grin and tells Nero it's finally go time, then pushes him to start with some water. Nero grins, tells her he's got it, and snaps into position, ready to cast the simple magic she asked for. He snaps his water spray spell loose, blasting straight at the pack of frogs to kick the whole battle off. After the blast, those giant frogs are dripping like crazy, and Nero blurts out, was that enough water for you? Eclair grins and tells him it's flawless, then says, watch closely, while the frogs just sit there totally baffled like they don't have a clue what's about to happen. She hoists her massive hammer overhead as crackling electricity crawls across it, shouting the name of her lightning hammer move. She's totally hyped. She yells, I'm going in, and he lets out a massive roar and slams the hammer into the floor, blasting a shockwave through the whole room. Nero's totally losing it. She shouts, why are you just smashing into the ground instead of aiming for the monsters? Then the entire floor flares to life. Electricity rips through the puddles and blasts every frog at the same time. Eclair strutted with confidence, telling everyone she already knew water and lightning would wreck them. Nero's still staring in total disbelief as the frogs lie there, completely fried. Eclair explains how the electricity surges through the water to reach everyone, and the entire pack of frogs just drops, dead still, out cold. Nero finally realizes how the lightning raced through the water, and he blurts out a shocked shout as he flashes back to their match. It hits him. His water shield couldn't stop her electricity. Eclair just stands there beaming like he cracked the code, proving he nailed it. She admits she's been dying to know what he can do ever since the marsh. Then she watches him take down her dad, and she's instantly 100% convinced. So Nero just blanks out, still reeling because his water somehow became a conductor. He halts for a split second as a fresh thought hits him, and suddenly he starts wondering if was that combo really the reason she hauled him into this dungeon in the first place? Eclair doesn't even bother hiding it. She grins and tells him right to his face that her whole plan needed a water user. She breaks it down. A guy with a water crest is basically the perfect match to help her throw caution to the wind and go all out. And honestly, that's the vibe. And Nero just flashes a tiny half smile, finally getting what he's really here to do. Eclair finally clicks. Nero's probably convinced she only wants him because people think water magic is worthless, so he feels like a surefire target. And she locks eyes with him and demands, do you honestly think I'd be fine with just anyone if they only have the right element? Nero scrambles to get a word out, but she suddenly reaches for him and shuts him down completely as the moment hits. And then he starts viciously pinching her cheeks, yelling that she knows exactly what he's thinking and demanding she pay for it. She suddenly turns serious and tells him, I only asked you to come because it's you, just your presence is what makes me feel safe and comfortable. Eclair admits that watching him go up against her dad hit her hard, and it was impossible not to respect the guts it took to never, ever back down. That's why she's finally learned to trust him with her whole heart, especially after watching him stand guard and back her up the moment they walked in. She admits she planned to wait until they cleared the dungeon before saying it right, but since they're talking right now. With a massive grin, she thrusts her hand out and dares him to make it official. Wants to form a party with her. Nero stands there for a beat, Then a smile snaps onto his face as he quietly thanks Eclair for the offer. Nero takes a beat to apologize for how hard he was on himself earlier. Eclair's telling him she thinks the world of him, and the guy can't stop grinning. He's genuinely thrilled. They locked it in with a firm handshake, both of them buzzing with the same plan: work together and make it happen. And Eclair leans in and tells him, as long as you keep the blade, you should be confident because you're honestly pretty great. But then she cuts herself off mid-sentence, eyes snapping wide like she just saw a ghost. Making Nero flinch, he blurts out, "Is something wrong?" She snatches his hand on the spot, screams, "I knew it," and practically drags him to the truth because now he can finally see it too. Two fingers shot straight toward the glowing crest he'd mentioned earlier, and she flashed a massive grin like she couldn't wait. Nero's jaw nearly drops as he blurts out, "Wait, can you really see the mark on my hand?" And she just breaks into laughter, swears she sees it perfectly, and leaves him totally frozen, like his brain can't keep up. Nero blurts out apologies like it's automatic, because he's so used to the Knight Leader hovering over his shoulder that his nerves can't help but twitch. Eclair shoots him a pout and demands why he's even bothering to apologize, then tells him straight up, if he's proud of the crest, don't look guilty, celebrate it. She whips around to the tiny slime perched on Nero's shoulder and asks Suimu, don't you feel it too? But that little guy is already knocked out cold, completely out of it, and it even calls it a massive shock that the crest is finally visible. She falls into deep thought, muttering to herself why something like this would hit so fast, out of nowhere, like a punch to the chest. Nero's gut tells him this can't be random, something's driving it, and his mind snaps right back to the instant he first got the sage's crest, remembering a voice that promised blessings to anyone who could truly master the principle of water. Then it hits him, he's piecing it all together, convinced it's tied to how his water magic snapped back from Eclair's lightning earlier. As soon as Eclair spotted the shift, he fired off his magic to probe what was really going on. And Nero snaps to the truth. That's when he truly hooked into the water principle, because the instant after, he can finally see the mark on his hand. Eclair leans in and listens to Nero's theory, and suddenly the puzzle clicks. She starts piecing everything together, and she finally gets a hint of the turns out that crest popping up tells him what's coming, and she goes totally wild, screaming that this means they're about to be an even stronger team. Nero bursts into laughter and nods along, while Suimu bounces wildly on his shoulder like he's buzzing with pure joy. Eclair juts her finger ahead and yells it's dungeon run time. She's ready to move, and right as they launch, a desperate scream for help blasts down the path, and the moment it hits, both of them go still like time just stopped. Nero can't help but wonder if other adventurers are trapped too, and then Eclair screams that something is way off. They have to hurry or risk it all quickly. They shove their bodies into overdrive, sprinting through the dark stone tunnels, racing straight toward the source of that noise. They burst into a huge chamber and yank their weapons free. Right ahead, a gigantic creature looms and stares them down. Standing over two guys sprawled on the ground, it growls and drools like a monster on the brink of tearing them apart, ready to kill. Nero gapes at the monster in pure disbelief, blurting out, "No way is that actually a magic beast, Red Bear." Eclair gets totally thrown off. She screams that this isn't even a high-difficulty dungeon, so she can't wrap her head around why this is happening at all. Why on earth is a high-level magic beast even here? This giant plant nightmare with rows of teeth is right there, and it's coming at us right. Looming over everything, this Aglaphlesion is the same kind of nightmare they fought back in the forest. And the worst part is, it's showing up way more than it ever should. But the danger is charging straight at them. One of the adventurers yelps for help, shouting that the bear snapped completely after it caught his friend's blood in the air. Nero screams that they've got to move and help them right now. He whips his head around, and Eclair's just standing there dead silent, wearing this unsettling dark stare like she's about to snap. Until Nero blurts out her name to yank her back to reality. She jolts like she's been gone for hours, so he shoots out an apology and asks if the whole setup doesn't feel weird, and right away Nero and Suimu both agree something's off here. Before the moment cuts to a massive roar rips through the room, and Nero barely even gets a second to react before the next thing hits. The red bear lunges in and the guy on the ground panics. He begs for help right now, because if they don't hurry, he's sure they're both going to die. Nero snaps into action, screaming for everyone to duck. And before Eclair can even grab him and beg him to wait, he's already bulldozing straight at the monster. The red bear explodes into action, slashing out with a brutal, oversized swipe. Fast, vicious, and right there coming for them. And Nero yells at Claire that he drenched the bear in water, so her move is gonna hit way harder now. Eclair shoots him a look, "I've got this," and grips her hammer tight before charging straight in for the strike. Eclair screams as she drives her weapon straight into the monster, right as everything starts to go off the rails, using Nero to figure out that his water magic is helping Eclair's attacks actually connect. Then Nero. Nero whirls around, and just like that, a hand shoots in from nowhere, driving a dagger straight into Suimu. Nero lunges, grabs Suimu, and shouts his name, while the poor guy they were rushing to save just stands there, knife in hand. He looks completely wrecked, ranting like a simple slime actually managed to ruin his whole day. Nero is totally lost on what's even happening. Then another adventurer flips out, yelling at his friend for messing up the plan, and it all goes downhill from. And when Suimu lets out that tiny chirp, Nero just clamps onto him, shaking hard, purely, completely crushed by the betrayal. Turns out slimes are basically blade-proof, which is insane luck, because it's about to get worse for him and he's about to learn why. Claire whips around, shrieks at Nero, "Are you okay?" While the two guys just freeze there staring. The axe guy scowls and snaps that Claire is about to turn into a real nightmare for them, then. But the other guy just raises a tiny little object and tells his friend, "Don't worry about it." Claire pushes the pressure harder, snarls at the bear to look her in the eyes, yet the next moment Then the monster's eyes flare to a blazing glow, and it screams with a roar so brutal it rattles the air itself. Claire snaps to a halt mid-swing, completely frozen as the beast's shift hits her like a punch, and right before she can even blink, the bear rockets forward at insane speed and the shock hits. This thing is way stronger than it was before. The knife-wielding guy flashes a smug smirk, claiming the bear got 3 times stronger, and that Claire has zero chance to win. Nero's heart drops as he panics, wondering if that monster has been teamed up with these guys the whole time, so he screams for a clear. Nero tries to move, but the thugs slam in front of him and tell him they'll never let him pass. And then it all snaps into place for him, because he suddenly remembers how wild it was, that bear just stopping its attack on Claire. They jeer at him, basically telling him to quit chasing girls and start minding his own life, because fretting won't change a thing. Nero actually nods along, totally locked in, while Suimu sprawls on his shoulder like it's no big deal. He glares at the group like a spark about to explode, snapping if they're even real adventurers at all. The blonde guy smirks through his knife and rope like he's savoring it, and tells Nero he doesn't even need an answer, because Nero's already about to die. Nero straight up tells them he was really calling them a disgrace to real adventurers, or maybe they're just fakes, making that. The axe-wielding guy cackles and brags up a storm, claiming that the $1 million mail-in bounty on Nero's head is basically free cash. The thug wastes no time. He rockets into action and hurls his axe straight at Nero's head, yelling at the top of his lungs for him to die. Right when the blade's about to land, Nero snaps his water magic into action and slams the whole attack down. Nero snaps his shield of the Water Guardian up, and Blurt begins a defensive spell right away to block the incoming hit. The armored guy can't believe what he's seeing, and he blurts out in full-on panic as the water blasts him backward. Nero won't even let him catch his breath. He blasts him with 3 lightning-fast water gun magic shots, ripping through everything. He slams the guy into the wall so viciously that his helmet and axe explode out of his hands and go flying. The tunic-wearing guy snaps. He starts screaming that Nero was supposed to be a weakling with worthless magic. His blonde-haired partner snaps back that he's got zero clue what's going on, then shoves the solution at him. Just get in there. The blonde guy snaps his whip like a weapon, trying to seize control and catch Nero off guard. But before he can finish, the other thug lunges in, yelling about his 3-way toss martial art, and hammers him with a barrage of daggers all at once. Nero counters in a flash. Then a brutal blast of water crashes straight into the thug's face before he even gets his move out. The second thug crumples to the floor and groans, and Nero snaps his eyes to the last one, telling him, "You're the only one left." Nero stares at the thug and realizes the whip isn't the real danger at all. Because if Nero was handling that beast earlier, then this guy's probably the type to carry a beast tamer crest. And just like that, the guy proves him right. He yells for his skill, and the moment he activates it, his bracelet erupts into a blinding glow. Out of nowhere, the whip ignites mid-swing, spiraling through the air with a brutal crack as the guy whips it around. Nero racks his brain trying to pin down whether it's fire or a composite element, but the real thing that hooks him is this. He's 100% sure that bracelet lit up. Nero asks if that thing is a skill jewel, and the thug just bursts out laughing, saying Nero's catching on way faster than he expected. These rare, skilled jewels pack a crazy punch, hand them to anyone, and they can unleash wild powers even when they don't have the right crest. Those rare gems are buried deep in the dungeons, and only after you set them into mithril bracelets do their effects finally kick in. The thug roars it's time and snaps his flame whip, blasting that scorching heat straight at Nero. Nero stays ice calm with Suimu perched on his shoulder, then thrusts his staff ahead as water starts to pool and churn at the tip. Fire and water slam into each other with a thunderous blast, blasting steam and raw energy everywhere, as the two powers tear at reality. The thug's eyes bulge with panic, sweat pours down his face, and he instantly crumbles, his cool shattered as he blurts, He freezes in total shock, staring at his soaked whip, trying to make sense of how his fire got snuffed out. Everyone told Nero that water magic was totally useless in a real fight, but he just stands there, like he's about to prove them wrong. Watching that guy spiral out of control. Because everyone in this world grows up believing water magic is useless in a fight, so Nero finally gets it. Because he used to think it was weak too, until his sage crest crashed into his life. He knows there's no way he could have stopped that flame whip in time. So he's stuck wondering why the world won't even entertain the idea of talking about how water can hit hard, but honestly, he's not about to justify himself to a creep like this. Doug can't believe he's getting crushed by useless magic, but Nero snaps water hammer. And then, Nero slams a colossal wall of water straight into him, then snaps his head around and screams, "Where's the clear?" She's right there facing that red bear. Then the moment hits, and the beast goes completely blank, utterly confused and totally lost. Eclair rockets into the air, whips herself into position for a brutal overhead blow, and shouts her martial art name. She shrieks like Thor himself, then smashes her weapon straight into the ground, hard enough to crack it wide open. She wipes her hands clean and seals the fight, then glances over at Nero. Looks like his end is wrapped up tight too. He adds that his magic is honestly jaw-dropping, and Nero immediately clocks it. This thug has to be a beast tamer. Eclair can't stop staring. She took down that magic beast by herself, and then it clicks. The red bear didn't get defeated fully, it only slowed down because something new was coming. Nero yanked its controller away from him and she shot back, "You've got all the credit." But Nero insisted, "No way, that's not true," and the argument kept going. Admitting he just stormed in, while she was the one who actually spotted the trap. Eclair flashes a smile and starts to explain. Her big move needs time to build up, so yeah, Nero really did save her. Staring at the guys sprawled on the floor, she can't shake the question, what was their whole plan even for? Nero smirks and reminds her they talked about a ridiculous Marin reward for beating him, and that's where it all kicks off leading. Eclair recoils in disgust, calling them the scummiest of the scummy for their greed, while Nero just shrugs, like they got exactly what they deserved. Eclair decides the smartest play is to rip the gear off those guys, use it as proof and tie them up, leaving them right there in the dungeon. Nero knows it's brutal, but there's no other choice because they can't just drag. Prisoners swarmed along, and these were the ones who attacked them first. Eclair couldn't stop thinking about what happens if she just leaves them tied up. Then realizes this is basically monster bait, only to spot high-end skill jewels in their hands, so much for being broke. And that's when Nero's about. Then it hit him something was off, and right as the cold voice cut through the air, he grabbed one of the thugs and hauled him in to tie him up. Tells her to stop and back off, then Nero instantly sniffs the danger and tears the air apart with, "Claire, get back." But right before, if she can even react, a blade whips through the air and cuts the thug's throat, blasting blood across the floor. Nero tightened his grip on the clear watch, and then those thugs met the same fate, one of them slumping against the wall with a hole strip straight through his chest. Nero yanks Eclair back and roars into the dark, demanding whoever's lurking there, but when the killer finally steps into the light, and Nero instantly goes rigid, staring in shock like, "Why are you even here?" Nero spots the man lurking in the dark, blurts out Hilton's name, and then sure enough, the guy only fixes his monocle and smirks, asking if Nero really remembered him back when he was acting like it's nothing. He shrugs and says he's just there to toss out some useless trash. And then he plants his feet and faces the whole group head-on, snarling that his only mission is to erase that worthless speck of dust, making sure it's. Nero snaps at him, "Why are you even trying to kill me?" And the guy backs off because Nero insists he doesn't remember doing anything that would put a target on his head but Hilton. The Sultan just lets out a heavy sigh, saying it's a real tragedy that Nero can't even understand why he's getting purged in the first place. And then he continues on like that, caught mid-sentence. Gets even harsher. He rips into Nero, calls him a disgrace to the Axis family, and declares that's exactly why he's here to take him down personally. Eclair's had it, she snaps, swings on the guy, and demands who he thinks he is to talk to Nero like that. And before the sentence can even, Hilton shoots a sly smirk, calling her a lovely young lady like a compliment, but it's really just a setup for him to flaunt how he's in control. Nero stared straight into his eye, and the words hit hard. He admitted he was actually impressed that someone as clueless as Nero managed to win over a girl like her. And then that. It leaves Eclair rattled to the bone, wondering if Nero's some kind of womanizer. But Nero only looks worn out and tells Eclair he's sorry for the trouble. Nero leans in and reveals the twist. Hilton wasn't just some guy, he was the butler in the very house where Nero grew up, and even though the guy used to take care of him, it all flipped the second Hilton started feeding him watercress. Like he didn't even know him, like he was nothing but a stranger. Eclair gets completely blindsided and blurts, "You really mean a family attendant?" Then he blurts in shock, shouting, "Wait, are you talking about the Marquis Axis family? the legendary squad of magic powerhouses. Nero just flicks his gaze aside and murmurs that he's been exiled, so his family name shouldn't matter a single bit anymore. He whips around to Hilton and rips into him, asking why he's only just now showing up after all these damn years. But Hilton just waves it off, claiming it was probably nothing, just a few mistakes that slipped through somewhere in the whole process. A cold glare snaps into his eyes, and he tells Nero that since he's still breathing when he should have been wiped out ages ago, he was forced to come face to face himself. He admits he never, ever thought he'd end up getting his own hands dirty like this. That snap of truth hits Nero. Hilton was the one who sent those 3 thugs to jump them earlier, and Hilton just throws his head back and laughs like Nero's dead right. Hilton tugged his glasses, stunned to admit this whole mess was a massive shock, because he never thought those thugs would get wrecked by the guy he calls a talentless piece of trash. And Eclair explodes, snapping at him to shut up and shouting that Nero's water magic is actually straight up incredible. Hilton leans over and stares at the guys crumpled on the floor, thinking they're just third-rate losers. Sure, Nero's magic could come in handy a little, but Eclair won't let up. She hammers on that Nero's magic is rock solid, and that his problem is just bad timing because he can't spot talent. Suimu chirps right along with her. Hilton goes dead silent for a heartbeat, mouth barely moving, repeating the words under his breath, staring nowhere at all before. He snaps completely, yelling that she's a bastard, then screaming that she dares to mock the master. Eclair gets completely blindsided by his sudden outburst and blurts out, "What's your problem? Why are you acting like this all of a sudden?" She refuses to back off, shoots him straight, and says it's obvious he's the one who can't spot talent, because Nero's magic is clearly powerful, so that means. Hilton snaps his hands up over his eyes, frustration exploding, and he blurts that if she's really feeling that way, then he can't keep ignoring it anymore. He looms over them and snaps that Lord Nero already condemned every last one of them as totally incompetent. A shadowy figure of Marquis Gyral Axis looms on a throne. He's the ruthless head of the powerful Axis family, and his rule is brutal. Talented water mages aren't allowed to exist, so he's already decided Nero is useless and has to be killed. Hilton's eyes go ice cold as he declares, "My master's word is absolute, no mistakes, no exceptions." He lunges for the kid and bluntly tells Nero right there, "I'm going to kill you, no warning, no escape." Nero refuses to back off, claiming this wild logic is exactly what he expected from a loyal guy like Hilton's crew, until Hilton snaps right back that it's just selfish talk. Nero lunged in front of Eclair to shield her, snapping that he's the real target and nobody else should get pulled into this. But Hilton just stands there with his back turned, and flat out shuts the whole idea down with a cold no. He whips around and tells them their bad luck started the second they hooked up with someone like Nero, so now they've got to leave, especially him, because he still can't swallow what Eclair said to his master earlier. Nero explodes into shouting, slamming the warning into him that Eclair is the guild master's daughter, touching her is a disaster, so he turns to Hilton and pleads, "Just take me and let the rest go." Eclair stares at Nero like he's lost his mind, demanding what he's even talking about, while Suimu only lets out a tiny little sound and Eclair can't even process it. Hilton is cracking up at them from across the room, and Nero watches with nerves on full blast as that guy. He shoves his face into it like it's ridiculous, ranting that handling trash from people with zero foresight is a total hassle, pathetic really in his eyes. He strides right up to them and demands, "So you still don't get why I picked this dungeon?" Then he grins and starts laying it out. Once he wipes every last one of them, he's just going to. He tries to slap it off as an accident. Then he points at the bodies on the ground and vows to use them to his advantage, claiming those corpses were just bandits in disguise. The idea is simple: wipe out Nero and the others, then toss their bodies right beside the rest, so the guards will buy the whole story and never suspect. They wiped each other out in that bandit raid, then he flashed a creepy stare like, "Hey, this is a dungeon, and in a place like this, if you leave the bodies where they drop, the monsters will come crawling in soon enough and wipe the evidence clean." Nero and Eclair. Both of them freeze, trembling, until Nero whips around and barks at Eclair to grab Suimu and bolt. Now, while she still has a chance. Forget running, Eclair just slugs him, straight up calls him an idiot, and even Suimu gets thrown around as she insists she's not going anywhere. Eclair storms straight into Nero's space, yelling that there's no way he's serious, she and Suimu are his allies. She can't believe he's really ordering them to bolt right now. She asks why they bothered forming a party at all if they're just going to scatter, and she makes it crystal clear they're not leaving a comrade behind. Suimu chirps right along, and Nero just stands there frozen in stunned silence. Claire screams for everyone to duck, and just like that, an enormous blade rockets straight toward them. Hilton looks totally bored as he muses that he's impressed they've survived this long despite his chakrams. then you can tell he's done with all this drama and wants to finish this fast. As he lines them up through the middle of his weapon, he smirks and tells them their escape talk is pointless, because he never planned to let a single soul get away. He shoots them a grim look and growls that he'll send every single one of them to the next world, so they'll be stuck together, keeping each other company in hell. While blades whirled over his fingers, he grins time for a final history lesson. His crest is thrown weapons, so yeah, he's a master of every projectile out there. He won't waste a single second. He shouts his guided throw martial art and unleashes a storm of blades that slice through the air with a razor-whistling fury. Nero surges forward, whips his hand out, and snaps a water magic spell, *** Shield of the Water Guardian ***, as a huge wall of water erupts into place and slams the attack out of the way at the last second. Eclair just freezes, staring at that shield like it's magic itself. Because it is, and she can't believe water magic can pull off something this insane. Hilton glares at the colossal water shield, beads of sweat streaking down his face, and mutters, "You're telling me that's it, just basic water magic?" He gushes that the display is incredible, but the dark look cuts through his words, because now he insists he can't let them walk out of here alive. Blades shriek through the air and slam into the watery wall, but Nero digs in, refusing to move, anything to keep Eclair out of harm's way. As they yell for Claire and Suimu to watch, the attack's pressure keeps climbing too high to handle. One of the chakrams tears through the defense and slices Nero's side, and he jerks with a sharp hiss, blood bursting in the air. Suimu bursts out panic chirps as Claire screams Nero's name, watching her friend get hurt in front of her eyes. Hilton just smirks and twirls another blade, telling Nero that the moment you focus too hard on your friends is the exact moment your own guard starts crumbling. Eclair's face flips in an instant. She tells herself she's not just someone who needs saving, and she blasts into a sprint, hammer in hand. She leaped in and slammed her massive weapon down with a deafening blast, and with the fight roaring in her grip, she swore she'd end it herself. As the dust finally settles, Eclair just stands there, scanning the empty room, trying to figure out where the guy disappeared to. Nero catches movement from the worst possible angle and screams for someone to look up, right as Wilton is already flying across the stone walls at breakneck speed, practically sprinting for his life. Eclair freezes for a split second, stunned speechless, because this guy is really sprinting along the walls like it's no big deal. He whips past in a blur, dodging through them like it's nothing. Then right when they're still scrambling to keep up, he lands perfectly behind them. Hilton fixes his glasses and shoots them a chilling grin like he's already sure. This time, the upper hand is 100% his. He cranks up the power even more, taunting them that he'll scorch their last shred of hope, right as his blades burst into flames. Claire's right there, gloating like she already won. Then a brutal, dark explosion rips open the space at her feet. Nero roars her name as the blast slams in, but the second it clears, he spots what's coming next. The flaming chakrams slam together into one monstrous weapon, and Nero's gut drops. His normal shield can't possibly block a strike that heavy. He doesn't waste a single second. He blasts a high-pressure water jet and tries to smother that heat right away. Eclair lunges to block the blast's searing heat, screaming that it's getting dangerously hot as Nero watches the smoke fade, worry crawling across his face, while Hilton just stands there totally unshaken. Nero finally snaps and screams at the guy, making it crystal clear that he won't let him hurt his friends ever again. Hilton looks absolutely crushed, snapping that it's unforgivable for a defect like Nero to even talk to him that way, and he charges right back, springing into the air to unleash his explosive throw. Nero stays on high alert, and then it hits him. Something way off about how Hilton is fighting. He's staring at that guy like, no way, his physical skills and fire magic are way too versatile to be just a normal attribute. Eclair snaps to it and starts connecting the dots too, remembering the crazy magic Hilton used on that thief earlier. Nero decides to put a theory to the test and unleashes a water spear barrage, blasting a razor-sharp wave straight toward him. Hilton keeps pirouetting around those spears like it's a prank, and he's taunting Nero. "Where are you even aiming? That shot is a joke." Nero's face hardens like he's got the guy trapped, and he declares it. Everything is unfolding exactly the way he planned. Hilton jolts into panic the second he realizes he's been hit, yanking his gaze down to his arm as fresh blood pours out of a brand new cut. He finally snaps to it. Those flashy attacks weren't the real threat at all. They were just a decoy to slip past his guard and get him to drop it. Eclair stands off to the side for a second, and the moment she spots the killer jewel he's hiding, pure shock knocks the breath out of her. Nero snaps that he knew something was wrong the moment it happened. He calls Hilton out for snatching that bracelet from the bandit they'd run into earlier today. Hilton straightens his monocle, plays it cool like he's done nothing wrong, and insists he only took back what he had lent out, like the theft never happened. Then he locks eyes with them and demands to know what the difference even is. because the jewels are still what he's using to take them down. He rockets into the sky, shouting that nothing changes. Nero and Eclair are still fighting from behind, way outmatched. Eclair refuses to back off. She snaps at Nero that it's time to hit them with a deadly combo move, and Nero finally tilts her head up, clicks with what she's been thinking, and realizes a killer combo is exactly what they need to finish this. Nero doesn't even hesitate. He blasts out a water jet and hurls a massive wall of water straight into the guy. Hilton clocks it coming and just glides out of the way, no panic, no sweat, like it's nothing as long as he sidesteps it. He starts strutting around, smug as can be, bragging that water magic is always useless, and that his master was totally right about Nero being a total letdown, and then Eclair explodes into the fight, hefting her massive hammer and lunging forward to slam the distance shut. Hilton just slides right through her strike like it's nothing, and the message hits her instantly. Nothing she throws at him will ever land. He keeps sneering that she's too slow to keep up, totally missing the fact that he just strode straight into the puddle Nero left behind. Eclair's face lights up with a huge grin, and she asks him what he thinks about lightning, because he's literally standing in the water right now. He finally clocks the trap, baited, played, and helpless, and that realization snaps him so hard he can't see any escape from what's coming. Eclair slams her hammer down like a thunderbolt, and the shock blasts through the water, sending him straight up in a flawless, sizzling combo. Hilton crumples to his knees, wrecked to the bone, groaning in agony as Nero and Eclair loom over him. Eclair bursts into cheers, convinced she finally nailed him, totally hyped. But the whole vibe flips the second Hilton stares them down, looking totally fine, while Nero and Eclair just freeze. They're left in stunned silence as Eclair screams. There's no way he should have survived a direct electrical blast like that. Hilton straightens his sleeve and blurts that he's been shadowing them. And right when intel pinpoints it, a lightning resistance jewel is revealed as the one thing that kept him alive. He straight up admits he's impressed that the water and electricity combo actually worked. Then he watches them scramble to regroup. Nero starts snapping clues together, and that awful gut feeling he got at the entrance. He can't stop wondering if it was actually Hilton, chasing them through the whole dungeon without a single person catching on. Then it hits you hard that. But Hilton keeps going. He points out that Eclair looks totally wrecked, and says her gear is probably cheap and falling apart. Eclair's stomach drops. Someone cracked their best combo, and that means their whole main strategy is suddenly dead in the water. Hilton flashes that wicked grin and drops the words. They've officially sealed their biggest mistake. Hilton hangs in the air and jeers at them, yelling that their biggest blunder was letting him slip away when they had the perfect chance right then. Nero snaps his water pistol magic and fires off a shot to silence him, but Hilton is moving so fast he turns into a blur. So he basically makes Nero's plan crash into nothing, making. Eclair pours every ounce of strength into a brutal hammer swing, only to miss and smash the cave wall to rubble, while Hilton casually glides out of reach like the hit never even existed. Nero's sweat starts pouring the second he realizes they're trapped in a terrible spot, because that guy's speed isn't just fast, it's on a whole different level. Hilton just smirks as they crash through the air, tells them it's pointless and leaves them stunned, because kids like them could never ever catch him. Nero barely gets a breath in before an attack whips around his back. By the time he clocks what's happening, the trap is already sprung, and Eclair gets hit straight on. She screams the moment the blow lands, and even tiny Suimu looks terrified. Nero screams her name, spinning in panic, seeing just how badly she's hurt. She tried to wave it off with a shaky smile, telling him, "Don't worry, it's just a scratch." But Hilton isn't buying any of it. He just glares them into silence and tells them that in the end they'll all just be dust. Nero grinds his teeth in raw fury, muttering curses under his breath as things spiral even worse. He can't stop thinking about how badly he wanted to break free from his old family life, especially now that he's finally started over and living like a real, ordinary person. He can't shake the thought that this guy won't even give him that one tiny breath of peace, so he cranes his neck and stares up at Hilton, still hanging there. He smirks as he looks down, smugly admitting he's genuinely shocked. Nero actually scratched him, even if just a little. Hilton tells Nero his only plan back then was to wipe out someone just like him, pure trash. But now he's decided to tweak the whole scheme. He jabs his finger straight at Claire and Suimu, declares he'll knock out the woman and the slime first, then swears he'll go so brutally that Nero will spend the rest of his life drowning in regret, leaving Nero frozen in total disbelief. Like his brain couldn't even keep up with the wild, insane things the guy just kept saying. Nero clenched his sword so hard his knuckles went white, fury boiling in his veins over Hilton kicking him out. And now he's ready to threaten the first real friends he's ever had. He grits his teeth, forces his mind to lock in, and realizes the only shot is to unleash his acid rain magic across the whole area and finally bring that guy down. Nero realizes that blasting this tight space with his heaviest magic, could easily turn the blast into a trap for Claire and the others. He tells himself to dig deeper, because he has to make sure Claire gets back to her family safe, something he never managed for himself. Suddenly, it hits him clear as day, back to the exact moment he first met the guild master on his way to the guild. Back then, Sanders clocked that Nero was acting totally off and snapped, "What's going on?" So the big guy shrugged it off with a laugh like, "Nah, I'm just remembering how we used to play together back then." Nero keeps replaying those soap bubble memories thinking, can I pull that off in this cramped dungeon? But the truth hits him hard. It still won't be enough. Then it clicks in his head. If he fuses these bubbles with that same reaction from when Hilton's fire blasted his water earlier, he shouts for his acid bubble float magic, then slams a huge water smoke screen down right after it, flooding the entire area. Eclair just stares, completely stunned, because she can't wrap her head around how water magic could possibly pull off something this insane. Hilton freezes, utterly baffled, as he realizes he's suddenly boxed in by a weird, cozy mist that rolls in out of nowhere. Hilton shouts that it doesn't change a thing, dismissing the entire move as a desperate smokescreen. He barrels straight into the white mist, convinced he can muscle right through it, but right away he crumples to his knees, clutching his face, stunned by what's happening, while Nero snaps at him not to move. Nero stands there like it's nothing, calmly telling everyone the whole place is crawling with acidic bubbles, leaving Hilton sprawled on the ground, barely able to even process the trap he'd just walked into. Hilton's jaw drops. Nero's water magic can melt with acid, and he finally realizes the smoke was just a sneaky cover to hide the bubbles. He puts on a tough act and says Nero's trapped too, because he can't even see straight, not with all this chaos, and he sure can't aim or move. But Nero just smirks and tells him that for once, things are way different, somehow better, somehow stranger, leaving Hilton utterly baffled, like he couldn't even guess what that kid was plotting next. He just stays down while the bubbles drift past him, fully trapped in Nero's crushing flow. Hilton's drenched in sweat, panic spikes through him, and he's begging them to just stop. He tries to play it cool and pitches a deal to Claire, tell her she can walk free if she teams up with him. He even went as far as swearing he'll tap into the Axis family's power to help her house. But Claire isn't buying it. She hoists her massive hammer as raw energy crashes around her, screaming that she'll never forgive him for dragging Nero through the mud. With Suimu perched right on her head, she snaps into action, calling out her Thor hammer move. The attack slams into Hilton head-on, blasting a brutal shock through his body as he rips into a blood-curdling scream. He gets slammed backward by the impact, groaning through the pain as bubbles float around his mangled body. Nero watches the whole scene, stunned that the guy is still standing after getting hit that hard. But he steps in anyway, tells Hilton to stop fighting and throw in the towel right now. Nero and Eclair dug in and stood their ground, making it crystal clear that no matter how powerful his family is, he's still going to pay for what he did. Nero and Eclair loom over Hilton on the shattered battlefield. He's crumpled on the ground, but he keeps yapping, calling them shallow-minded trash. He straightens his monocle, grabs the blame with both hands, and swears the Axis family's power had nothing to do with it. Like he acted alone, end of story. Hilton shot them a smug grin and warned Nero that if he thought this was some grand revenge moment, he was being painfully naive. But Nero doesn't even blink at the trash talk. He just shuts the guy down, calls his words stupid, and brushes off every excuse like it doesn't matter. Nero jabs his wand straight at the villain and snaps that whether he was taking orders or not, he's still a criminal, and he's going down. Eclair leaps in to back him up, shouting that Hilton is done either way, while Suimu chirps from the top of his head to make it clear she's in too. Hilton bursts into laughter the second they reach into his coat, saying the whole reason they're so soft is because they really think he's done. Nero spots the guy groping for something and knows it's a trap, so he lurches forward and yells at Claire, "Get behind me," before it's too late. He snaps up a shield at the very last second, as a gigantic, blinding flash detonates in front of him. Hilton shouts his final goodbye and bolts, and Nero squints into the glare, yelling at him to stop and stay put. Nero rubs his eyes, seething as he realizes that blinding flash was nothing but a cruel decoy, just so Hilton could slip away. Eclair rubs her eyes and squeals that it was way too bright, while Suimu chirps right along like, "Yep, totally," matching her every complaint. Nero glances over to make sure they're both alright, then panic hits. He blurts out apology after apology, swearing it's all his fault. Claire doesn't buy the apology for a second, and when Suimu glares at him with that terrifying, dark stare, he goes completely rigid and freezes. Then Eclair snaps into action. She starts swinging hard, landing hit after hit on Nero and screaming that she's done with his attitude. She slams into him and knocks him flat, and the second he hits the dirt, he screams. Leaning in hard, Eclair jabs his cheek and snaps that he's still acting like he's the only one who's to blame. She keeps poking him and drilling it into him. Yeah, they made a party, so they're both in this, handling the hard stuff together. Suimu dives in right behind him, poking Nero's head and chirping like he's just as fed up as Eclair. Realizing how much they mean to her, Nero finally cracks a smile and hands them both a genuine, heartfelt apology. Nero flashes them a huge grin and swears he won't try to carry everything alone anymore, even if he's still. Eichler admits it's good to see her flustered, and right after that, she lunges in clothes and demands to know why he's blushing so hard. Suimu keeps chirping like, "Hey, you gonna answer or what?" While Nero blurts, stumbles over his words, and scrambles to find some excuse for why he's turning bright red. Eclair's still planted right on top of him, and Nero finally snaps and asks her to please, just get off him already. She snaps back to reality, jerks away in panic, and blurts out non-stop apologies, while Nero frantically tries to reassure her it's totally fine. Once the dust settles, Nero blurts out that they've got to report everything to the guild, and Eclair instantly jumps in. Yeah, absolutely, it's the. Nero says the other thieves got wiped out the exact same way, so yeah, this is the right call. They better dig deeper into that dungeon. The rescued adventurer stands there, staring as Nero insists they've got to clear the area and make it safe before the next group marches through. Meanwhile, Hilton is limping through the cave, gripping his side, snarling under his breath fuming because he actually got hurt by a bunch of people he'd already written off as trash. Out of nowhere, a tiny rat monster in a vest rockets in with an axe, shrieking like mad as it charges straight for Hilton, but Hilton doesn't even blink. He just whips his blade in one flawless swing and slices the creature clean in half. He explodes in rage, muttering curses under his breath about how someone as important as him is being dragged down by mere trash. That wound still won't let up. He clutches it and screams that it's all those pesky bugs he's been tracking, and only them that did this to him. Gasping for air, he readjusts his glasses and snaps back into the game. Suddenly, the Knight Leader and his whole crew crash onto the scene, and the leader just guffaws, calling it a wild coincidence that they'd bump into him here. Hilton's face goes ice cold, and he leans in to tell them to listen up, because the targets they have to kill are right around the corner. He tells them their targets are basically cornered, bleeding rabbits now, easy prey, no trouble at all to put them down. The Knight Leader says that's a huge relief, and she figures they're genuinely lucky. Hilton nods along like, yep, I couldn't agree more. Before he told them to stop stalling and start moving right now, he made it crystal clear they had targets to catch. Hilton's standing there totally frozen, brain buffering on what he just heard, and he blurts out a confused little sound like he can't even believe it. He stares at his hands, groaning as the blood keeps pouring, his arms are wrecked, and pure pain has him trembling like crazy. He starts cracking, screaming at full blast as the Knight Leader and the whole party loom over him, watching him crumble in real time. The Knight Leader flashes that smug grin and tells Hilton, with your arms like that, your legendary throwing skills are basically dead now. Hilton's sweating buckets, eyes wide in pure panic, staring up like, what the hell do you think you're doing? The realization slams into him. His eyes go wide as he stares at them, terrified, and blurts out, are you seriously betraying me right now? The Knight Leader lurches forward, his armored boot thudding the ground, and then he snaps at Hilton that this isn't betrayal. It's something far worse. He locks eyes with Hilton and flat out says he never once saw him as a teammate. Cold, brutal, and definitely not how you end things. Hilton just freezes, staring straight back with wide eyes behind his glasses, so shell-shocked he can only spit out a curse under his breath. Hilton finally loses it, screams at them one last time, whips around, and bolts for his life as fast as his legs will take him. Fiatal snaps his hilt shut just in time as she blasts out a burst of magic. Slam. It smacks him right in the face and steals his scream mid-breath. The Knight Leader glares back at the guy on the ground and snaps that he should be grateful, then walks away, leaving him to bleed out. They snap him back to reality. Yeah, this is a dungeon, and right on cue, glowing eyes ignite out of the pitch-black darkness. Giant monster rats tower over Hilton as he gasps for air, and the Knight Leader smirks, because those things living here are about to turn him into dinner. Looking down one last time, the Knight Leader declares it the perfect end for a nuisance, and Hilton stays kneeling in the dark as the monsters surge closer. A giant rat explodes forward and rips into Hilton, chewing him down as the cave erupts with the monster's savage feeding, until he's completely gone. The sun sinks low over the quiet rooftops, and for a moment the whole town looks perfectly at peace. Nero tells them to rush to the guild and lay out everything that happened, and it clear nods like a heartbeat, clutching Suimu tight against their chest. The streets are buzzing with folks trading dinner plans and work stories, and Nero and Eclair slide right into the crowd like they belong there. They slip past a few dudes yapping about their massive plans for the day, while everyone else is just living their normal evening, and the two of them keep pushing forward, step after step. Nero pushes through the crowd, then wham! He jerks to a stop because something snaps his attention, and you can see he's completely caught off guard, like he didn't expect this at all. And he just freezes, staring at a pair of strangers drifting past. Eclair clocks it instantly and demands what's wrong, but Nero can only fixate on. He caught a crest on those people. And just like that, he whipped around, shouted after them, and snagged a man mid-step who was hauling a hoe. The woman keeps pace beside him and the guy glances back, totally confused, and asks, "Do we need something?" Nero tries to act cool, but he's clearly freaking out. Then he blurts out a shaky request, asking if he can take a look at their crests, and right before they even get spooked, he bows hard and roars that he's a total crest superfan, while those two strangers just freeze there like, what's going on with this weird kid, though? They decide to be kind and show him their hands, telling him their crests are nothing special at all, just the usual signs, wind and a hoe. So the woman lifts her hand, straight up, asking if he really thinks a common wind crest is that fascinating, and Nero stares at it with a stone-cold serious look. But the guy just shrugs it off and laughs, claiming his crest is only fit for digging up dirt on a farm, while Nero looks anything but satisfied. He locks eyes with the man, desperation pouring off his face, and demands to know if that's truly the only crest he has. The woman flashes a warm smile, tells Nero she's sorry for crushing his hopes, and then reveals the truth: only the crest on her hand is hers to give. She leans in and asks if he was really hunting a hybrid crest or something, while, as Eclair sprints over to catch him, she demands to know why Nero just bolted. And when he turns out completely flustered, he blurts out an apology for the sudden move, so he throws himself into a deep bow to those two strangers, thanking them for helping him out, like he didn't just ambush them a second ago. The guy with the hoe shrugs it off, tells me it's fine, then walks out, leaving me standing there stunned. Nero laughs it off, nerves buzzing, then tells them goodbye, only to worry in secret that he's way too sensitive about crest colors, because he's almost sure he saw it flicker black for a split second. As Nero and Eclair head off, the man freezes on the spot, staring after them, wondering how that kid could have possibly seen the truth. He starts spiraling into panic because only people with the same crest are supposed to see it, and there's no way Nero could be anything but that puny water crest on his hand. She stares at her hand as a far more complex crest begins to blaze over the fake one, and even as she admits she has no clue what's happening, she's still relieved she wore the disguise just to stay safe, and her face hardens into ice. She realizes that if Nero can really see through all their tricks, their organization is about to get hit with a massive headache, because turns out Nero's already kicked it with the guild master's daughter, the real main target from here on out. Eclair grills Nero about whether he's got some kind of crest obsession, and Nero only chuckles and brushes it off. Then he shrugs, tells them to head back and call it a day. As the sun sinks lower, the two of them sprint back toward the guild house, leaving the day behind. Floor grins as they burst through the doors, and the guild master, Sanders Thor, spots them instantly, then welcomes them back with open arms. Sanders steps into Nero's space with a terrifying stare, basically daring him, "Don't you dare tell me you tried anything with my daughter while we were out." Eclair snaps and tells her dad to knock it off already. Meanwhile, Nero just stands there, sweating bullets, trying to act like he's totally fine, but then she drops this bombshell. Something far more important just happened, catching the guild master completely off guard and leaving him scrambling to figure out what's really going on. They slip into a private room, slam the door shut, and start talking like no one else exists. No eavesdroppers, no interruptions. Sanders takes one sharp second to process it all. He's already admitting, "I knew Nero was hiding something from the start." But he never in a million years guessed that kid was actually tied to the legendary Axis family. Eclair is still reeling from the bombshell, while Nero hangs his head, apologizing to both of them for hiding his identity for so long. Sanders leans back and tells Nero straight up that the guild doesn't pry into an adventurer's past, unless it blows up into a massive problem, so he's not going to stir up trouble over the secret. But the guild master can't fathom how anyone would kick Nero out of their party, just so they could come after him later for the hunt. Heat surges in his chest as his teeth grind. He vows he'll never forgive them for dragging his daughter into their mess and putting her in danger. He points out that the Axis family are legendary mage royalty, so going toe-to-toe with them isn't the kind of gamble you make when you expect to walk away victorious. Sanders decides it's time for a real investigation, checking for any proof, any bodies, anything that ties those thieves back to the family. Even with his gut screaming the local monsters probably already wiped out whatever evidence was left, he can't shake the feeling. Alright, next he fires Nero a warning. Stay sharp and watch your own back, because from here on out he's taking care of all the heavy lifting. Eclair jumps at the chance and tells her dad, "Honestly, you're dependable when it really counts." But Sanders shrugs it off like it's no big deal while he picks his nose. And that smug act only makes it crystal clear that she's the one who'll be protecting Nero anyway. She whips around to Nero with a grin so wide it could light up the room, then declares in no time at all that they're starting a party together, right now officially. Sanders stares down the chaos as he repeats it back, Nero, is the one that family wants to hit. Eclair refuses to back down. She straight up tells her dad that if he tries to make them quit right now, it'll be her who's furious. Sanders finally breaks into a grin, laughing that danger is just the price you pay when you're an adventurer. Eclair nods and instantly yanks Nero along, telling him they should grab food together. Sanders just stands there wearing a dark, terrifying stare, like his mind can't even process what's happening. He snaps, screams at the top of his lungs, and warns Nero not to even think about touching his daughter. Nero yells back that he's not budging for a second, while Eclair just lets out a tired sigh at her dad's suffocating overprotectiveness. Night drops hard on the town as everyone bursts out for the evening, moving on like there's no time to lose. Nero squints at the chaos, stunned by how fast everything's flying, and blurts out, "Wait, you mean we were really just talking about food?" Eclair tells him it's their very first day as a party, so they're heading out to celebrate, so they can finally get to know each other better. Eclair jabs a finger down the street, and even Suimu, somehow, looks fired up by the decision as they barrel through the taverns, yank open swinging doors, and get greeted with a bright, cheerful welcome by the waitress on the floor. The place is packed, so the waitress squeezes over, lays it out, and asks if they'll be cool sharing one table since. Claire flashes a smile and says she doesn't mind at all, while the guy already posted nearby jumps in, cheering, then thanking them for coming. The waitress strides over to the big table, leans in, and asks if they're good with more people squeezing in, and this dude at the table shrugs like it's nothing, but Nero and Eclair freeze solid when Nero clocks exactly who's sitting there, and the night leader snaps his head up, annoyance blazing across his face. The waitress tells them both to enjoy their food, then walks off, leaving the two groups frozen, staring each other down in dead silence. Fia rockets out of her seat and screams Nero's name, like she still can't wrap her head around the fact that he's really standing right there. Serena calls it a total crazy coincidence, running into him like that, while the night leader just glares, furious that they showed up. Eichler squints at the strangers and demands of Nero, "So they're really your friends, right?" And Nero, all jittery, blurts out that yeah, they know him for sure. With a bright smile, Sophia leaps in and introduces herself as Nero's former party mate. Eclair is utterly stunned, blurting out if these really are the hero party Nero used to belong to. Nero tries to patch things up by dropping a name, Claire, and tells everyone she's the partner he's adventuring with now, but fear. Sophia's sweet smile suddenly turns menacing as she keeps repeating Eclair, pointing out, almost like a warning, how weirdly close the two of them are. Fia's stare hits so hard that Nero's gut drops, because her smile isn't just creepy, it's sending cold chills straight through him. Nero tries to shake off the tension, saying Claire is new and it's been ages, so why not bury the past like it never happened? And even when it hits him, he tries to turn it into a joke, cracking a pun that calls it water under the bridge, all because he's got a water crest. Every single person at the table just freezes, staring him down in eerie silence, and the whole room suddenly feels like it can't breathe. Nero's sure he totally messed up, but Eclair finally gets the joke and jumps in to save the moment, saying it fits perfectly thanks to his crest. Just as they're waiting on the edge of their seats, the waitress finally barrels up with a massive smile, proudly declaring that everything they ordered is here. While, as she slams down a monstrous feast, roasted calf, crispy fried potatoes, and giant boar meat, filling the entire table from end to end. She keeps the feast rolling, mountain pasta piled high, sizzling skewers hot off the grill. Then she even brings out a curry served straight inside a giant pineapple, making Nero realize Serena's hunger is still pure chaos as she devours everything in sight, while Fia is left staring, stunned that all this food is for just one person. That night, the leader finally snaps open and tells Nero he doesn't have to apologize or scrub the past clean, he just needs to stand up with real pride. But Eclair refuses to let it slide. She locks eyes with the guy and demands to know the real reason she and Nero broke apart. The night leader only takes one sip of his drink and grins, saying it's simple, Nero got kicked out because he was useless, and that's where the story cuts off and Eclair just couldn't take it. She shot back at him, furious over how they'd treated her friend. Nero tries to play it cool, then admits to Eclair that back when he was in their party, he was seriously pretty weak, especially because his water magic barely did a thing in a real fight. But Eclair snaps back, screaming that it doesn't matter, because Nero was always the one who could spot traps in that dungeon like it was nothing. If Claire won't back down, she'll snap that just because Nero can use water magic, it's no excuse to treat him like trash. As the night leader slams his drink down, he snarls that Nero was decent for hauling bags, but in a real fight, he's nothing but dead weight. He keeps pushing, insisting Nero was doomed to stay stuck as an E-rank nobody forever, so they finally kick him out. And for him, that's the whole story done and over. Eclair just glares at the guy, her voice flat as she tells him she's heard enough of his attitude. She suddenly grabs Nero's arm, flashes a grin, and tells him she's happy they're so blind, because it let her throw a party with a guy she can actually trust, and it just keeps going. Nero is completely flustered by how close she gets, and he can still feel it. Fear lurking behind her like she's about to snap and kill someone. Eclair keeps firing off new details, says Nero's already a D rank just like her, and then reveals he's gearing up to sit for the C rank promotion exam. The news slams into the Knight Leader, and the shock spills out of him as he blurts the same thing: Nero is taking a C rank test. He twists his face into a bitter scowl and mutters under his breath that it finally clicks why Nero's been breezing through dungeons lately. But Nero spots the slip, fires off a question about how the guy even knew he'd been in the dungeons, and the Knight Leader instantly freezes like he's been caught red-handed. Serena just keeps shoveling food in, while the Knight Leader pretends he's calm, blurts that he only knows about Nero, and insists rumors spread like wildfire among adventurers, making her feel. Hold on, look at her, because Claire is actually the guild master's daughter, and Nero didn't have a clue until right this moment. She bursts into laughter and says, seriously, Eclair is everywhere, because she's famous for being a deadly Thunderandiron Hammer hybrid. Fia leans in with a smug grin and goads her, saying she's the one girl who's way scarier than real thunder once her temper finally snaps. Eclair doesn't blink. She snaps back with a sharp grin, asking if she's actually talking to the bomb girl who's got no fuse. They're locked in a stare-down, both wearing terrifying smiles like they're daring the other to blink, while Nero's stuck right in the middle, whipping his gaze between them as pure panic takes over. Suddenly, the whole room erupts in laughter. Both girls lose it completely, while Nero and Suimu just stare in shock like, wait, what just happened? Fia pushes back from the table, looks Eclair straight in the eyes, and says she's the first person ever who's had the nerve to talk to her like that. Eclair pushes herself up, admits this honestly feels like a breath of fresh air, finally talking to another girl like this, because everyone usually tiptoes around her, treating her with kid gloves thanks to her dad and When they finally agree there's nothing left to do but hit the drinks, they seal it all with a thunderous high five. Suimu chirps in pure confusion, while Nero just stares on with a shaky grin, watching the girls instantly click after that high five, and Serena keeps munching like it's nothing, casually tossing out, if that Knight Leader wants to stop being so stubborn, then try hanging with Suimu for a while. At night, the leader snaps. She starts yelling at her, demanding why on earth she'd pull something this ridiculous, but Suimu starts bouncing around like a maniac, and the Knight Leader groans because he can't even stay annoyed. She's actually beating him. He finally gives in and pokes the slime's squishy face, then freezes when he realizes just how unbelievably soft it is. Suddenly he jerks back, face blazing red, and yells that he's done, saying acting like this is totally beneath him, even though he snaps right back to serious mode, quizzing Nero on what kind of trick he used to summon a fresh party and rocket into dungeon diving so fast. Nero tries to brag that he's gotten way better with his water magic, but the Knight Leader slams him down and declares water magic is useless the moment a real fight starts. Nero goes silent, mind racing as he realizes the Knight Leader still hasn't seen what he's capable of, because he got kicked out of the group. He just smirks to himself, knowing the guild master can already see his true worth, while his old leader still stubbornly won't. Nero just grins and tells them, water magic isn't useless at all, it all comes down to how you wield it, right as the night closes in. Knight Leader clocks one glance at him and instantly sees it. Nero isn't going anywhere and he's not backing down. Look. Nero glances at his brand new party, smiles, and says he's finally found his people, so he's staying put and going all in, no matter what comes. So the Knight Leader snaps that he's a stubborn brat, then finally relents, swearing he won't try to kick him out of town anymore. He snaps to his feet and tells his team it's time to go, even as Fia looks genuinely bummed that they're leaving this soon. The leader brushes her off, snaps, so how long were you planning to babysit these pleasantries with a guy we already fired? But Serena is absolutely crushed. She wanted one more round of food and the leader immediately snapped, yelling, how much do you think you can eat? The night crawls forward and the stars ignite above the quiet city streets, but she walks back to the floor on her own, then locks eyes with a couple of guys who are way past drunk. One of them suddenly turns way too friendly, leans in with that creepy grin, and asks if she's free to go hang out with them. Drunk Thugga lets out a nervous laugh, jabs his buddy with a finger, and tells Floor it's totally just a random shot at the pickup, because the other guy is so wasted. Then out of nowhere, a mysterious woman sweeps in and asks, sharp as a knife, whether they're really going to entertain her tonight. Drunk Thug B gets all hyped, blurts that he'll give her the night of her life, leaving his buddy staring in disbelief because somehow they actually landed it. Under the blazing full moon, the woman tilts her face upward and blurts out, like it's a secret only the night can keep, how beautiful the sky is. The guy in the overalls leans in, slips into the clothes talk, and tells you straight up that a night like this hits him like pure madness. He's buzzing with excitement. She shoots back a grin, her eyes spinning with those strange swirling patterns, and tells both of them, "Look straight at me." Those two guys are completely stunned, blurting that her eyes are so gorgeous it feels like they're getting pulled right in. Then she just shoulder checks right past them and keeps moving, and those two are left frozen in place like statues. Soon enough, another group comes striding through the alley, and they spot the two of them just frozen in place, motionless as stone. One of the guys suddenly breaks into laughter, asks if they drank way too much, and warns them not to doze off standing up. Beneath the moonlight, those two thugs snap completely, shrieking at full volume and clutching their heads like their minds are unraveling. People nearby lose it, yelling that the guys are acting crazy for no reason. Yet that mysterious woman doesn't even glance back as she strolls away, humming and leaving the. She slips into the chaos with a dark giggle and a crooked smirk, acting like she's fully aware of exactly what she just did to those guys. And then she lifts her hand to the moon and reveals a creepy black mark on her skin, daring out loud to figure out just how many more people she can drive insane tonight.